Monsieur le Commissaire de Saint-Hélier. Monsieur le Deputy Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le Deputy Harrier.
Sir, Deputy Tadjer has had trouble with his travel to get to the chamber this morning. I know that he's given the greffier notice of this, but he is on his way, so I wondered if it's appropriate to ask him to be excused until then. Should only be 15 minutes or so.
Members agree that mark the Deputy excusé on the assumption he arrives in the next 20 minutes or so. Very well.
Madame le Deputy Doublé.
Present.
Madame le Deputy Alves.
Default.
Monsieur le Deputy Farnham.
Default.
Monsieur le Deputy Balash.
Présent.
Madame le Deputy Poré.
Les États sont constitués. Does anyone want to raise the defo on Deputy Alves? The defo is raised on Deputy Alves. On behalf of members, I'd like in the traditional way to welcome His Excellency, the Lieutenant Governor of the Chamber this morning. And there are subordinate enactments under B. A number of documents have been presented or laid as described in the consolidated order paper under section C and under section D. The following have been lodged. Maximum employment probation periods P103 amendment lodged by Deputy Andrews. Draft children and civil status amendments Jersey law lodged by the Minister for Children and Education, P104. Draft Wills and Succession Amendment number 3, Collateral Succession of Removable Estate, Jersey law, lodged by the Chief Minister, P105. Vote of no confidence, Chief Minister, lodged by Deputy Binet, P1. Draft Children and Young People, Jersey Commencement Act, lodged by the Minister for Children and Education, P2. Remote participation into the States Assembly for the purposes of election of Chief Minister or Ministers, lodged by Deputy Scott, P3. Jersey Overseas Aid, reappointment of a Commissioner, lodged by the Minister for International Development, P4. The Seaside Cafe site at Greve de Lec, acquisition by the Land and transfer to the National Trust for Jersey, lodged by Deputy Farnham, P5. There is, in due course, to be nomination for the Minister for Infrastructure, but that will take place after consideration of P1, because obviously that may change the circumstances depending upon the outcome in that vote. Very well. A number of answers to questions have been lodged. And we now come on to oral questions. And the first oral question is to be posed by Deputy Scott of the Chief Minister. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Given the government's focus on prudent and effective allocation of public funds, will the Chief Minister explain how the former Chief People and Transformation Officer was able to approve expenditure of a reported £11,000 of public money on entering public service employees in the UK's Personnel Today Awards 2023, including flying 10 employees to London, providing them with accommodation, a 3-course meal with wine, and an after-party?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. It is important, of course, that we recognise the achievements of staff across our organisation, and we should acknowledge that our HR team won the Team of the Year award at this event. The decision to enter these awards was taken by the former Chief People and Transformation Officer, who held accountable officer responsibility at the time. I can confirm, sir, that the decision was taken in accordance with the business travel policy, and travel bookings were made using HRG in line with that policy. I recognise that the public response to the decision to enter these awards, and I am in no doubt that this will be taken into account when similar decisions are taken by officials in future.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir. Was the Chief Minister surprised by the public response given the cost of this self-congratulatory exercise?
No, sir.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Chief Minister what role the members of this winning HR team had in producing the letter to teachers, which has been so disappointing to a profession on this island?
Sir, I don't believe that the same. I'm not aware of the exact composition of that team, sir. It is, as I stated in my opening comments, a personnel matter, a decision that was taken by an accountable officer, and that I think I have opportunities later to address the issue of the position that we are in with teaching unions and the way that we're trying to find a way forward through that.
Supplemental question, Deputy
So I assume that they did take a role in producing a letter that has upset so many professionals on this island. And can I ask the Minister whether this is the future of HR on this island, this sort of threatening approach to employees?
Sir, I disagree that there is a threatening approach being taken, but there is a number of people working in our HR team, people and looking after the people in our organisation, which, as members know, is an organisation which runs to some thousands. Therefore, there is a large team of people supporting them.
Deputy Barber Ward.
My apologies, sir. My paper's just touched the...
Just as well it wasn't a vote then. Deputy Sutton.
Thank you, sir. Is the Chief Minister aware of what, if any, legal advice the appropriate department has sought over the two-handed issue and treatment of its teaching force?
I'm sorry, Deputy, that's, I think, far too far outside the ambit of the question. The question relates to the payment of public money for some form of celebratory event. Well, that you'll have the opportunity perhaps to do so then. Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Following the public discomfort with this expenditure, what instructions has the Chief Minister or her ministers given to officers about any future expenditure such as this?
So we haven't had an opportunity to consider at the moment the spending limits for accountable officers, but I think the sums given in this example are acceptable sums for an accountable officer to have, and therefore it's unlikely that any change will be made. As I referenced in my opening answer, I'm sure that officers will be most aware of the public response, and that will have necessarily an impact upon any decision-making in future, which of course may have positive and negative implications.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. Whilst the amount of money may be appropriate for an accountable officer to be able to spend, I think the public is dissatisfied by the way in which this money was spent and whether it met the government's view about value for money. So could the Chief Minister tell us whether she considers this type of expenditure on this type of award to be good value for money?
So I think my personal views have been made quite clear already. What I would like to say in these circumstances is that my experience of dealing with officials in the public sector is that they are motivated by public service. They want to do right for the island and for the public. They use public money wisely and take decisions carefully. This issue is a regrettable one, sir, and I'm sure it will not happen again.
Contab St Mary.
Thank you, sir. I myself received in the last 2 weeks an email kindly advising that I've been nominated for the best small legal practice of the year, and would I like to, notwithstanding that I ceased to be in practice for 10 years, would I like to accept that nomination and donate £800 towards it. will the Chief Minister accept that most of these organisations, and I'm not saying this was the matter in a discussion is one of those, will the Minister accept that most of these organisations organising conferences are effectively money-making enterprises and nothing more? Thank you.
Sir, I think it would be rather complicated to go into the ins and outs of such processes, but I wish to congratulate the Deputy on his achievements and recognition that has clearly been found in some corners of the legal world, and I'm sure it hasn't been the first time either. Sir, there will always be opportunities for recognising service, and some people do turn that into something of a business enterprise. But it's also important that people are given opportunities to recognise their hard work, dedication in various industries. And I'm sure that this experience will not have a chilling effect on the whole industry.
Supplemental question, Connitar? Final supplementary question, Deputy Scott.
So, noting that the Chief Minister doesn't seem to think that officers should have been aware of the public response to the expenditure on what's being perceived as a jolly, could she explain, given its motives, what measurable effect has this perceived jolly had on the morale of the public sector?
Sir, we haven't yet taken a pulse of this, the public service since this particular incident, so I would be unable to answer that specifically. I'm not sure the Deputy has perhaps heard me right in the first part of her question, which I think suggested that I think the first part of her question suggested that there was some acknowledgement. I simply disagree with the first part of her question, sir.
Very well, we come to question 2, that Deputy Tadier will ask also of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thanks, sir. Sir, can I apologise for not being here at roll call and thank members for their excusing me?
Don't we have to raise the deaf... Oh, no, you were deaf excuse. No, that's perfectly all right.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate the Assembly's indulgence. Will the Chief Minister commit to ensuring that the pay dispute with teachers is resolved in 2024? And if so, will she explain on what basis the Assembly can have confidence that this dispute will be resolved, and if not, why not?
Thank you, sir. The government plan seeks to ensure that public finances are sustainable, balancing competing objectives, which of course includes fair pay for staff. The pay dispute with the NES-UWT is resolved with confirmation that the pay offer for 2024, 25 and 26 should be implemented. This offer includes an 8% consolidated award for 2024 and a guaranteed RPI consolidated for 25 and 26. We've also offered a minimum of 2% rise even if RPI falls lower in 25 or 26. The NEU have rejected the pay offer. We continue to offer and recommend binding arbitration to settle the dispute with the NEU, which we consider as the most sensible and pragmatic approach to settle the dispute. The SEB continue to support the Terms and Conditions review, which began in September last year and continues with weekly subgroups and a steering group meeting every third week.
Supplemental question, Deputy Taddy.
Thanks, sir. Just to clarify, this question was submitted before the announcement on Friday after question deadline. So I would question the Chief Minister's statement that the current pay talks are now resolved. They seem to be far from resolved, and there's also a question about the legality of the course of the government. Would the Minister perhaps comment that she is completely satisfied that the legal position is watertight? I'll leave that question there, sir. Is the Chief Minister content that the legal position is watertight?
So, firstly, I'll point the Deputy to my initial response, which identified that the dispute is resolved with one teaching union and not with the other. So we received, of course, as members would expect, advice prior to sending a letter to all teachers We also sought advice from the Jersey Advisory Conciliation Service. Therefore, I think appropriate measures were taken. What we're trying to achieve is a payment to those teachers who agree with the pay offer. And as the employer, we do not hold information that tells us which teacher belongs to which union. And we're simply trying to find a way to pay those people who wish to be paid.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister confirm that the offer made to the NASUWT, 48% of which their members rejected it, also included a deal to not strike for the next 3 years? And that was made clear to members when they voted?
Sir, I think given the disruption that has been caused to children's education, and let's not forget the public sentiment around this issue as well. It was a relevant question in the previous question from Deputy Scott, and it's a relevant question on this topic also, sir. We're trying to find a way forward to ensure that teachers are valued in our society. The greatest value will be found in delivering the terms and conditions, which is something that teachers asked us to do when we met with them, as we meet with every union on a periodic basis. We're tackling that. We're making excellent progress, I'm told, in dealing with this issue. That will make a real difference to teachers' workloads, and that is what we want to achieve. What we also want to achieve is enabling our children to have a good education, an excellent education in this island, and we're focused on achieving that.
So before I ask my supplementary, can I have my first question answered, which was whether a no-strike deal was made clear, because that wasn't addressed, sir.
Are you able to answer that specific part of the question, which was very clear from the Deputy? Was there a no-strike requirement in the deal?
I do not recall, sir, I'm afraid.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Yes, sir. Let me ask this question, sir. From the letter that was sent in the supposed deal, what happens to somebody taking a job in May or June or July? Will they be asked also to sign away their right to strike in order to get on, which will be a differential pay scale now for those who haven't accepted the deal and those who have? So which pay scale would new members of the profession go on from May or July? So I asked the Minister, what will they ask to be signed away that deal before they're employed? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I certainly hope that we will have been able to resolve this matter before May, June or July.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. This is a very, very specific question. Could the Chief Minister inform the Assembly whether or not the government took legal advice from a legally qualified practitioner on the legality of whether the government is able to put together a database of how people voted in a secret ballot, and if they don't take part in that process, unilaterally revoke their right to strike?
So, as I've previously said, we took advice. We've also considered data protection issues, and therefore that is, on balance, our reason for writing in the terms that we have.
So the Chief Minister said she took advice. Was that legal advice from a legally qualified practitioner?
Yes, sir.
Very well. Final supplementary, Deputy Taddy.
So we have a scenario where the government is saying it can't give RPI for the current dispute, but it's promised it for future years when it has no idea what the RPI will be. Maybe there's a magic money tree. But the question is, sir, is this not an indictment of the Chief Minister's leadership, that this dispute has been going on for so long now, and we come into yet another calendar year, and it's still hanging over her head and the Assembly's head? Would she take that as her personal responsibility that this dispute is not resolved, and that's yet another argument that undermines her leadership?
Well, that's two questions, Deputy.
I think it's related, sir.
Well,
I'll let her choose.
I'm not sure. I think the Chief Minister can answer whether she believes she's personally responsible or takes personal responsibility, but I think
I'll leave it there then. Thank you.
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Sir, the largest teaching union has resolved their Sir, sorry, I'm being a little distracted by gesticulations in my direction. The largest teaching union has resolved this issue. We are trying to find a way forward now, sir, that will resolve for all teachers. What is important is that the children of our island receive an education of the highest standards. We remain committed, sir, to finding a solution to the terms and conditions issue, which will therefore impact positively upon the workload of teachers. And we remain committed to moving forward in that regard.
So may I ask at what point, if one believes the Assembly may have been accidentally misled, one might raise that even during questioning? Can I raise that now?
No, unless you can, to raise a point that the Assembly believes to be misled, I think in most circumstances that should occur on a different occasion, on a different proposition. But you could, well, I'll leave it at that. And Deputy, that was your question. So we now move on to the...
Sir, could we raise the defo on Deputy Farnham, please?
Defo is raised on Deputy Farnham. Yes, we now have question 3, which Deputy Meze will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Will the Chief Minister state whether it is the position of the Council of Ministers that introducing a statutory living wage is not feasible or desirable, and advise whether it is her intention to abide by the decision of the States Assembly in adopting paragraph A of P98/2021 and ensure that the minimum wage reaches 2/3 of median earnings by the end of this year?
Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. Ministers remain fully committed to the existing target of raising the minimum wage to 2/3 of the median, subject to economic conditions, and the Minister for Social Security has confirmed to me that she will instruct the Employment Forum to take the 2/3 target into consideration in their 2024 review. This government has already taken decisive action by raising the minimum wage by more than 26% since June of 2022. The Council of Ministers does not hold a position in respect of the partial and incomplete quote provided in the question. The Council of Ministers is proud to maintain the accreditation of the government as a living wage employer and is fully supports those local employers who have made a commitment to be living wage employers. Ministers are also fully committed to creating a thriving economy. This is how, as an island, we create the economic activity that funds good wages and good public services.
Supplemental question?
Thank you, sir. Why has the government published a report saying that introducing a statutory living wage is neither feasible nor desirable when the Chief Minister now stands in this Assembly and says they actually don't take a view on that statement?
As I suggested in my original answer, sir, I do believe that the Deputy is slightly misquoting the report. If I could read the full sentence that he is referring to, and I will have to put my glasses on. So it says, it is not feasible or desirable to introduce a statutory living wage rate for Jersey based on a calculation of minimum income standards. So, sir, it's the minimum income standards part that is the critical part of this point, and I would ask the Deputy to consider that sentence in its entirety.
Deputy Taddy.
Would the Chief Minister clarify whether there's a caveat on support for the living wage, which is subject to economic conditions, and will she explain, if that is the case, what subject to economic conditions means?
Sir, every member of this Assembly is fully aware of the current economic conditions. As an island, we are facing them. Most of the Western world is in a similar position. There are many impacts that are causing that. And so, of course, one has to approach this issue in a careful fashion because we have businesses who have bills to pay and are dealing themselves with rising costs. And we take a careful approach to that as one that is reasonable and one that does not stifle progress. We want to see our economy grow. We're committed to encouraging growth in our economy largely through greater productivity. We have increased minimum wage by 26% since taking office. We've gone from £9.22 to £11.64 today. So that is through reasonable steps, taking into account the economic circumstances that employers who have to pay wages are operating within. It's a competitive environment, sir, and one that, of course, every good employer will be doing its utmost to pay its employees the very best wages that it can. But, sir, we walk carefully in these economic times and take all of these matters into consideration.
Yes, Deputy Telly?
Thank you, sir. So I don't think the Minister addressed exactly why a living wage should be subject to economic conditions, but does she agree that actually those on the lowest hourly rates of pay are actually the ones who need guarantees that whatever the economic conditions are out there, that they will be given a living wage that they can afford to live on reasonably in an increasingly expensive island, not subject to what the economic conditions may be for those who do have money?
Sir, I would simply remind the Deputy that if wages are uncompetitive, if the cost of doing business in the island is uncompetitive, there won't be the employers there to pay those wages. So we have to take a balanced approach and respond to those conditions and ensure that businesses have confidence in doing business in our island and employing people. And that's why we take a balanced view and move carefully and cautiously, but respectfully in this important area. We all agree that we want to see those on the lowest pay being paid as much as they can be, but we do that mindful of the conditions in which we're operating.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister, Chief Minister, does the Minister understand that without a living wage as the basis for our society, we are expecting significant numbers of people to go out and work full time for a wage that they simply cannot make ends meet with?
Sir, I believe in a living wage. Personally, I have committed to that previously. So we have also a system that provides support for people. Not all people work a full time job in a week for various reasons. There is a system and we have benefited that system and changed we have taken a holistic approach ever since we entered office by ensuring that our policies covered all the bases for those who are in work, for those who are unable to work, and for those who receive income support whilst in work. We have covered our bases. We are mindful always of those people, and we are doing our very best to make that balance.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Minister to confirm that doing their very best includes the necessity of food banks, which have become an integral part of our society, it seems, and increasing reliance upon income support, even for those who are working in full-time roles or those who are, have some sort of impairment? Is that the better way forward that we're looking at? Thank you, sir.
So the use of food banks is nothing short of tragic in this modern environment, which is why we have to make sure, as politicians, that our systems are in place to support all islanders in all circumstances. Of course, people should not have to revert to food banks. That is not the kind of island that we want, but we're grateful to those who are making them available, and we continue to work towards ensuring that that is not a necessity that islanders seek.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. With reference to the Chief Minister's previous response regarding concerns about the minimum wage and its role in competition and employers, does she not accept that the minimum wage is intended to promote fair competition? And why has she not referred to inflationary impact on basic consumer products as a consideration at all?
When I talk about economic circumstances, of course, inflation is part of that. Rising inflation is something that we all, and I've spoken about this in the Assembly previously, we all have a duty to help curb the rise of inflation. And that means balancing price increases and anything that contributes to the rising cost of living and doing business in the island.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
Sir, that sounded a bit like word salad to me, so I haven't got anything else to say.
A supplemental question should be just that. It's not an opportunity for comment.
Sorry, so no, sir, sorry.
Very well. Deputy Sutherland.
Thank you, sir. In her support for the living wage, the Chief Minister, does the Chief Minister recognise that a minimum wage is about prevention of exploitation, whereas a living wage represents a figure which can provide a decent living for our workers?
So I believe there are a number of different measures for describing a living wage. Yes, it should be a wage that does not cause a person to seek further support over and above their role in paid work. But, sir, there are, as I said, a variety of different descriptions for that. And it could be said that the current one that's in use in the island, which is simply to take the London figure and add 2% to it, is not an accurate reflection of what the living wage could and should be in the island. That is what we're working to currently. But what we're, through the Social Security Minister and the Employment Forum, going to do is go and ask them to consider how we do what we've agreed as an Assembly to do, which is to get to a position of 2/3 of median wage as our measure.
Supplemental question, Deputy Sutherland. Final supplementary, Deputy Meze.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister has referred to economic conditions multiple times in her answers. So why is it the case that there is not a single statement or piece of evidence offered in this report to back up the statement that it's not the right economic time to raise the minimum wage to the living wage? Why is there no reference whatsoever to the economic conditions of people who are living in poverty pay despite being in full-time work? And if it's not about a living wage, a statutory living wage based on minimum income standards, which definition will she be recommending to the Assembly instead then?
So I did not write this report. This is a report provided to us as a piece of advice. We take advice, we consider it, and we make decisions. So I believe that I have outlined today how the Social Security will make progress and enable herself to take further decisions later in the year with the support of the Employment Forum, which is the device that we have in operation. Of course, I simply don't think I can add any more.
Well, we come to question 4 that the Connétable and Brillard will ask of the Minister for the Environment. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. In the light of the numerous traditional roadside granite walls that have been damaged in recent storms, will the Minister advise how his department is supporting their repair, and if there is no such assistance in place, whether consideration is being given to providing support for their reinstatement? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Sir, I am aware that there are still many people struggling with the aftermaths of Storm Ciarán in many respects. And of course, the Connétable is right to highlight that we've spoken a lot about trees, but there was a lot of damage caused elsewhere to other structures in the island, and that is very important. So in response to the impact of Storm Ciarán, the number of officers available to provide assistance through the planning and building duty service to islanders with damaged buildings and structures, including traditional roadside walls, was increased, and their hours of operation were extended. Assistance was and remains available from officers in the Historic Environment Team to provide specialist advice and assistance for all historic buildings and structures about their repair and restoration as a result of storm damage. And of course, there is also detailed advice available about the repair and maintenance of the island's roadside walls, fosses and bonks, available on the gov.je website through the standard supplementary planning guidance and other guidance notes.
Supplemental question?
Yes, sir. I think the Minister misses my point to a degree in that the bottom line is the cost of repairing roadside walls, and particularly granite walls, of which there are many in the island. And the Minister's answer didn't indicate whether there would be any financial support for that in any shape or form. And if I may refer him, sir, to a former member of the Assembly, the late Deputy Norman LeBrock, who I think I'm right in saying, and I haven't researched the detail, actually created a fund to maintain the traditional roadside walls. So I would ask him, sir, if he would dig out the information on that, and perhaps with a view to reinstating it for the repair of our walls in perpetuity. Thank you, sir.
Minister.
So it is, I don't know if it was Deputy LeBrock, but there was certainly in 1994, the states allocated £100,000 to roadside walls and bonks in a capital vote. However, that money was long spent, and there is no money currently in the government plan for this kind of thing. What I would say is that this is obviously a matter that would depend to a considerable degree on the extent to which insurance might cover repair works, and in the same way that buildings are covered by insurance, it may be that in many cases walls are covered as well. So I think we should be cautious about simply making unfunded and commitments without knowing the scale of the problem. I'll be very happy to engage with the Constable in terms of discovering if there are particular cases of which he's aware that might merit further investigation, and we can help to build up a picture of this as an island-wide issue to see whether indeed the scale of the issue and uninsured losses is something that we should look at further. But I would urge caution in that in the first instance. Thank you, sir.
Very well, we come to question 5. The Deputy Rob Wall will ask for the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. So may I ask the Minister, is the Minister assessment that the recording of death by suicide is adequately and accurately undertaken by the appropriate authorities involved? And if not, why not? Thank you, sir.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. The decision as to whether a death is recorded as a suicide is made by the Viscount as coroner, or the Deputy Viscount or a relief coroner, following an inquest hearing at which evidence is heard and a finding of inquest made, all in accordance with the Inquest and Post-Mortem Examinations Jersey Law 1995. Essentially, there are two elements which must be proved on the balance of probabilities. One, that the deceased took their own life, and two, that they intended to do so. Suicide is never presumed. Findings of inquest in Jersey are narrative conclusions rather than the short-form conclusions used in England and Wales, such as suicide, accident, unlawful killing, an open verdict, alcohol, drug-related, etc. The Superintendent Registrar uses the information provided in the finding of inquest, known as the particulars in the law, to populate the required fields in the death register. The Superintendent Registrar is required to register the death using all the information provided by the Viscount's Department in the finding of inquest. This process and death certification are requirements in law under the Marriage and Civil Status Jersey law and the laws that govern the statutory function of the Viscount. I have no reason to consider that it is not sufficiently robust.
Supplemental question.
Yes, thank you, sir. And I thank the Minister for her answer, because I know it is a complex subject, which is why I asked the question. May I ask the Minister whether, given that there are, and the word's gone out of my head now, processes to try and lower suicide, is the data accurate enough to get a real idea of the extent of suicide, demographics, etc., so that any plan can be targeted effectively on the island? That's what I'm trying to get out. So
I thank the Deputy for his follow-up question. And I think this answer will help. Information relating to all deaths in Jersey is gathered by the Public Health Intelligence Unit, and annual reports are presented. In particular, the Jersey Mortality Report 2022 at page 16, where a wider definition of suicide is used, and that states, deaths are included here where the cause of death was recorded as intentional self-harm or undetermined intent. So I think I am happy that the Public Health Department are taking accurate and reasonable steps to understand the extent of suicide and obviously use that information to inform their public health campaigns.
Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister please explain how the death of those who do not live permanently in the island, such as migrant workers and work permit people, is logged, if different at all? Thank you.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. Whilst I am not responsible for the Viscount's department, I understand that it is irrelevant as to the nationality or the status of the person that resides in the island. The death will be recorded in exactly the same way.
Supplemental question, Deputy Porre.
Thank you, sir. My understanding is that work permit workers are the most vulnerable group in our island at the moment, and understanding those issues, the death, especially when it comes to suicide, it would really help because we could improve our work permit policy and understand how to look after migrant workers. Thank you.
I thank the Deputy for her question, but I understand as the issues regarding the initial question from Deputy Ward and that of Deputy Porre to be entirely separate. The question was really directed at how the act of suicide is recorded in the island, and certainly I have made my thoughts known regarding the special care of permit workers in a different forum.
Very much. Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. I think the Minister answered partly a question I would have asked, and so I think the follow-up is to do with the fact that, say, an FOI request is put in, a Freedom of Information request is put in asking about the rates of suicide in the island. Which figures will the questioner be given that the fact that there seemed to be a conservative estimate, which is perhaps, say, has a high bar for the definition of suicide, and the other definition which the Health Department may use for its stats purposes? I
thank the Deputy for his question. When it comes to freedom of information, I think the obligation is for the appropriate agencies to provide all the information, so I think it's likely that both sets of figures would be presented in that question.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tony. Final supplementary question, Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. And I'm sure the Minister is as sensitive to this issue as the rest of us. Can I ask the Minister, would she perhaps agree that there may be a difference in the public and private expression of the numbers of suicide, because families and cultures may want to not have that in the public domain, but that data is essential for us to make public health decisions? And is the Minister aware that the dichotomy between those two is a challenge, but it is something that will be taken on? Thank you, sir.
Yes, again, I thank the Deputy for his question, and as a result of this question coming forward, I've done a little bit more research, and one of the issues that I think is potentially problematic in Jersey is not having the short form of death certificate, which means that the death certificate that is presented to the family, perhaps for probate purposes, to take to the bank, to take to DVS, actually contains the narrative verdict of actually the circumstances of the suicide. And I can understand that that would be very, very distressing for families. And indeed, earlier this morning, I did have the opportunity to discuss this with the Viscount, and I can give the Deputy my assurance that actually we will be looking at this. Obviously, there has to be an official record of death, but that doesn't mean to say that the certificate that proves a person is deceased necessarily has to contain all the information pertaining to their demise. So I hope that satisfies the Deputy.
Very well, very much. We come to question 6. The Deputy Tony will ask the Minister for Social Security. Deputy.
Thank you. Will the Minister commit to reviewing the eligibility requirements for home carers allowance, including the rules around a claimant's contribution record and non-qualification if the claimant is in receipt of an old age pension, and if not, why not?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for his question. One output of the high-level review of social security benefits undertaken last year was a recommendation to investigate potential changes to contribution rules for all benefits, including home carers allowance. This work is scheduled to take place later this year. Home carers allowance was the subject of a discussion with Deputy Barbara Ward at a Health and Social Security panel scrutiny hearing in September 2023. As Deputy Ward recognised then, the rules in relation to overlapping benefits, which don't allow someone to receive more than one contributed benefit from the Social Security Fund, are a fundamental principle of the Social Security system, and I have no plans to change those. However, as I explained to the Deputy then, I am committed, during my term of office, to looking in more detail at the support that is offered to carers and how that support is delivered. That will include those claiming home carers allowance. In addition, a review of the sustainability of the long-term care fund is also included in my delivery plan for 2024. Sir, all carers play a vital role in our island, and since taking office, myself and the Assistant Minister for Social Security have worked to have a better understanding of the challenges they face. This year, I will be implementing the new Care Needs at Home benefit, which will look to provide extra financial support to lower-income families where care is being provided at home. Following the Assembly's decision in December, we will develop a new scheme to provide financial support to parents who have children with terminal and life-limiting health conditions. I will also be lodging changes to extend home carers allowance to parents who are caring for more than one child at a care level lower than the current HCA threshold. In my discussions with carers and care-focused organisations, recognition and practical support, such as respite, appear highest on the list of things which carers want. To that end, I will continue to work with other ministers to improve practical support available to the island's carers. I'm aware that many members are interested in this issue. However, it is a very complex issue and one that will take time to properly investigate.
Supplemental question, Deputy Secretary.
I thank the Minister for the full answer. I take that as a yes in the roundabout that she will commit to reviewing it. Does the Minister agree that actually we shouldn't really be classing social security pensions as ordinary benefits, contributory benefits, because they are actually something that an individual is paid into over many years, so it's effectively largely their money? And does she therefore also agree that it would be wrong to say that if somebody is a carer and happens to be a young pensioner looking after perhaps an older pensioner, that they should be treated any differently to somebody who is still in work?
Sir, I think there's a continuing misunderstanding about the nature of a social security pension. Nobody, in paying into the social security fund, nobody is creating a pot of money that is reserved for them. It is effectively an insurance scheme. You pay in during the course of your life, your working life, and at the end, your years of contribution record then develops your pension. When we pay in, we are paying for a whole number of things. We are paying to fund other pensioners' pensions. For example, monies that we are paying in now will go to paying pensions. We pay for long-term incapacity, sickness incapacity benefits, short-term incapacity benefits, and things like home carers allowance. As I say, it's a complex area, and the issue with pensioners, if you become a carer, once you receive pension age, there is no question that you will not receive home carers allowance because that is a working age benefit. There are concessions available for people who are already receiving home carers allowance when they become pensioners, and they do not lose any funding. They receive the funding that they would have received, and the basic rules apply to everyone that only one benefit is payable. The issue about no carer, very few carers are asking me or telling me that they want payment for looking after their relatives. Thank you.
Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. My understanding is that the Care Needs at Home benefit has been worked on for a number of years. And could the Minister tell us when that might be in place and give us some details?
I thank you, Deputy, for her question. Yes, I agree that the Care Needs at Home project has taken longer than we would all have liked. However, after some delays, it has really taken on, it has been a focus of last year, continues to be a focus. We will be rolling it out by Q3 this year at the latest, but we certainly aim to have it rolled out much sooner. We had initially proposed a small pilot version, but we've decided that rather than add an extra pilot into the process, supporting a small number of people, we will go straight to the benefit, we will go straight to launching the scheme. So I consider that to be a positive. The Care Needs at Home benefit will aim to support lower income families by meeting the additional costs of caring for someone at home. So, for example, if someone's being cared for, there may be extra fuel costs because they need more heating. There may be extra costs such as regular washing. They may need more consumables. They may need specialty foods. So the Care Needs at Home project will aim to cover those costs or some of those costs for relevant families. And my team really are working very hard to bring that in as soon as we can, sir. Thank you.
Supplementary question, Deputy Curtis?
Yes, please. I thank the Minister for answering that. Just to confirm, this will be a means-tested benefit?
Yes, sir. It will target particularly lower-income families. Thank you.
Final supplementary question, Deputy Taddy.
Sir, there are members of the public out there who do believe that a carer's allowance should be paid even when you're a pensioner in receipt of a social security pension. I have a constituent who's not left the island for 7 years. I don't know if we can imagine quite a thing, not having left Jersey for 7 years. And she says quite simply, I think that home carer's allowance should continue when you receive your pension, as nothing has changed and you're still caring for that person. Does the Minister not agree that if somebody is providing care for another person, they should be eligible for carer's allowance, and it should be that simple? And would she commit to be open-minded in that respect during the course of her review, sir?
Sir, I am open-minded, but I think we have to remember that it's not just about home carer's allowance. The Social Security Fund has developed over decades that people pay in one set of contributions and they receive one benefit. To give pensioners two benefits because they have caring responsibilities would put them in a preferential position to someone, for example, of working age who isn't working but is caring, and they will receive more money than that person who only receives home carer's allowance. So we have to consider all sectors of the community and all carers, and it's a very difficult thing simply to focus on pensioners. I would also emphasise, sir, that any pensioner who is caring for another pensioner, for example, if the person cared for meets any of the personal care requirements, they will themselves qualify for long-term care. And I would encourage anybody caring for a relative who is older to speak to the long-term care team at CLS to make sure that they are receiving long-term care where that's applicable to them. Long-term care does cover things like respite, it covers carers' respite, so it would enable a person such as the Deputy's constituent to have support to leave the island by providing respite for the person that is being cared for. There are multiple sources of support, and anyone in that position I really can only encourage to speak to the pensions and care team at CLS. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Minister. We come now to question 7 that Deputy Mesic will ask of the Chief Minister. Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Has the Council of Ministers accepted the conclusions of recent reports from Jersey charities that food bank usage has reached record levels, and what plans, if any, does the government have to resolve the situation?
Chief Minister.
Thank you. Ministers acknowledge that local food banks have reported high levels of demand in recent months. It is not possible to confirm if food bank usage has reached record levels, as there is no agreed method for recording usage and each food bank runs independently. The 2022 and 2023 Jersey Opinion and Lifestyle surveys included questions for islanders receiving charity support of all kinds. In 2023, this section specifically asked about food bank usage for the first time, with 2% of respondents replying that they had used a food bank at some point. Local charities play a valuable role in providing practical support to islanders in many ways. The Deputy Chief Minister and I visited the Salvation Army just before Christmas to see at first hand the services offered and to discuss areas where government can support charities. We will continue to work closely with food banks and other local charities to understand and support the needs of their clients.
Supplementary question, Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Is that really the government strategy, that it will help food banks to continue to provide support for these people rather than eliminate the need for them to need that support in the first place?
Sir, the government strategy since the beginning of our term of office has been to meet the needs of islanders and to focus on the cost of living. That's why we brought a mini budget. That's why we brought forward measures in our government plans to support islanders. I can list a number of them if members need reminding. Sir, we have a temporary reduction in social security contributions of 2%. We brought that in September 2022. The community cost bonus was doubled to £516.50, and we've continued that through into this year. We guaranteed a £70 a month cold weather payment for 2023 and 2022, and minimum wage, of course, increased in September in our mini budget to £10.50. That support continued in 2023. Income tax thresholds and allowances increased by 12%. Alcohol and fuel duty was frozen for 2023. A 10.4% annual rise in income support components from January 23 gave extra help for private sector tenants. A £20 reduction in GP surgery visits. I go on. Changes to GP prescribing rules to reduce the number of visits needed to receive regular medication. Free GP surgery visits for all under 18s. Health access scheme, £12 for GP surgery visits for low-income groups. The expansion of the Pension Plus scheme, which helps pensioners with dental, optical and chiropody costs. Additional support for winter 2023 and 24 with a £70 a month guaranteed cold weather payment to low-income pensioners and some income support claimants. We've increased the Christmas bonus to £114 in 2023, and the community cost bonus, as I mentioned earlier, was maintained at £516 per household. And for this year, sir, income tax thresholds have increased.
Chief Minister, we've reached
we've
reached 30 seconds longer than the normal 1 minute 30 seconds allowed for an answer. So I must ask you to bring your answer to a close.
Yes, sir. I have three more points to make. Our measures for 2024. We increased income tax thresholds to £20,000 for single people and to £32,050 for married and civil partners. Income support rates increased by 8.6%, which is just under a 20% increase in 2 years. Minimum wage rate went up to £11.64 on the 1st of January. That's 26% increase since June 2022. And finally, sir, the health access scheme, £12 fee for GP visits maintained for the whole of this year, and I thank members for their patience.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. It's good to see so many reform policies being quoted there. So can I ask the Minister, if there is a situation where, because of a repayment of an overpayment caused by a delay in social security or an error by social security, those people have then been driven to food banks, is not a simple solution to simply not recover those payments because it is counterproductive? Thank you, sir.
Sir, I believe that that particular matter is the subject of a scrutiny review, and one that we need to. We're grateful for the recommendations. We are, and we will work to improve on that response.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Indeed, sir, it was a recommendation that was rejected by the government. And I would ask the Chief Minister to look again at that recommendation and to act upon that, because that is one of the reasons that food banks are becoming an integral part of this government's policy for those who are least able to pay and survive on the island. So will the Minister look again at that and perhaps act on that particular issue? Thank you, sir.
Chief Minister.
Sir, I will, yes.
Deputy Feldman.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister confirm whether or not staff at Customer and Local Services are referring people to food banks when the state's benefits do not meet their needs?
Sir, that is not a question that I can answer from my role, I'm afraid.
Deputy Feldman, supplemental question to that?
Yes, sir. Given the high numbers of people that are using food banks, would the Chief Minister concede that that is proof that the current benefits system is not fit for purpose and needs immediate attention?
So I referred earlier in my rather lengthy answer to the increases in income support payments that have been met over our term of office, those increases of 20% over the period. So we have been doing our best to respond to the needs of islanders. We continue to do that. We're fully focused on it. The cost of living is an issue for all islanders. It was one of our areas of relentless focus. It remains a priority for this year and beyond.
A final supplementary, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. Can the government provide an explanation as to why, with all of the things that the Chief Minister listed in response to an earlier question, that charities are reporting a rise in the usage of food banks? Is that not a sign that the cumulative effect of those policies is not working?
So, in any situation, and particularly when under strain and difficulty, as we can see many islanders are, of course we do our best. We implement proposals, policies and changes. That's what we have done, and we continue to review those, to consider those, and if they aren't meeting the needs of islanders in any way, then of course we revert to that, we respond, we continue to improve. One of our values as a public service is always improving, and we're committed to doing just that.
We come now to question 8 that Deputy Rob Wall will ask of the Assistant Chief Minister with responsibility for digital.
Thank you, sir. So will the Assistant Chief Minister state whether there are currently any projects under development or that are contracted to Fujitsu who are currently involved in the post office scandal in the UK? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. There are no projects currently under development by the Government of Jersey that are contracted to Fujitsu.
Thank you, sir. Just one supplementary question. Are there any existing projects that are historic projects that were taken out with Jiu-Jitsu that are currently working for the being paid for by the government? Thank you, sir.
Sir, we have no records of projects being delivered by Fujitsu historically. We do have records between 2005 and 2015 of a small spend of £50,000 with Fujitsu. As we are aware, there are scanners and hardware such as laptops in our estate, but that is as far as our records go. We have no projects historically that we can find.
Very well. We come now to question 8. Question 9, I beg your pardon, that Deputy Scott will ask of the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister advise whether his department has, within the last 2 months, contacted any businesses in the island with an interest in the medicinal cannabis industry with a view to forming a consultative group for policy development in this area? And if so, what mechanisms are being used by his department to ensure that all businesses in the island with such an interest are contacted and are fairly represented?
Minister.
Thank you, sir, and I thank the Deputy for her question. Sir, the Department has not formed a consultative group for policy development in this area. I have set up such consultative groups in the past, for example, the formation of the Visitor Economy Steering Group, but I have not in the case of medicinal cannabis. However, officers were approached by a local medicinal cannabis company requesting an introductory meeting between myself, officers and producer representatives of the newly constituted Jersey Cannabis Advisory Board. The Jersey Cannabis Advisory Board is an independent, industry-led producer group comprising of businesses currently licensed to cultivate medicinal cannabis in Jersey. It is not funded by government, therefore current and future membership and terms of reference are a matter for the members of the Jersey Cannabis Advisory Board.
A supplemental question, Deputy Scott?
Thank you, sir. To what extent is the Minister aware of policy officers consulting with the Jersey Cannabis Advisory Board in making its policy?
Sir, I am not aware of officers in government making policy for the Jersey Cannabis Advisory Board. The Jersey Cannabis Advisory Board's policies are their own to decide. Thank you, sir.
Well, the final question with notice is to be asked by the Connétable and Brillard of the Minister for Justice and Home Affairs. Connétable.
Thank you, sir. Given that the UK is developing electronic gates which will use facial recognition to process arrivals into the country, will the Minister advise whether any consideration has been given to implementing such systems in Jersey ports, and if not, why not? Thank you, sir.
I thank the Connétable for his question. The Jersey Customs and Immigration Service have already been liaising with the Home Office, who are leading this as part of the future border immigration system, going to be known as FBIS. The development of a digital border is a key component of FBIS, and facial recognition is an element of this. In an island environment, we need to consider the security of our border, but also the customer experience of the travelling public and the financial implications of this, and indeed other digital initiatives that will contribute to a future digital border. Any implementation in Jersey of FBIS will reflect good practice of biometric privacy concerns and also compliance with applicable data protection legislation.
Supplemental question, Carter?
Thank you, sir. I'd be interested to know if the Minister considers whether this system would ease the passage of French nationals coming to the island for short trips, which he presently has an exemption, but it would seem to be a more permanent solution. Thank you, sir.
I think we have to think very carefully about which bits of FBIS we introduce into Jersey. We are actually a very small jurisdiction. It's not only security, but it is passage of passengers that has led to sort of electronic gates in the United Kingdom. So I think all I would say to the Connétable is that we would keep this under advisement.
Deputy Poré.
Thank you, sir. This may be actually a bit of a premature question to the Minister, but has the Minister at this moment in time got any idea of how much it would possibly cost to implement such system in the island? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
At this point in time, I do not have any indication of what the cost may be, but we do need to bear in mind that as we are part of the common travel area, much of the digital technology is provided to us by the Home Office, and it may well be the case that elements of the SBIS programme go the same way.
Supplemental question?
No, thank you, sir.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Will the Minister be publishing the policy regarding the protection of such data and its potential use in other in aspects of surveillance?
I thank the Deputy for the question. There is no doubt in my mind that we are considering facial recognition for future border immigration system and not for wider CCTV or facial recognition use. So alongside the implementation of that particular system, as I've already said, there will be a policy that will reflect good practice for biometric privacy concerns.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott?
No, thank you, sir.
Final supplementary, Connétable?
Thank you, sir. I would just ask the Minister to confirm what she said earlier on, whereby she and confirm that she will continue to press the English Home Office to pay for an electronic system which we may implement in the island. Thank you, sir.
As part of the common travel area, we share common technology, and there are processes and procedures in place for sharing that cost.
Well, that brings questions with notice to an end. We now move on to the 3 periods of questions without notice. The first period is for the Minister for the Environment. Deputy Luce.
Thank you, sir. So it was recently announced by government that it's bringing to an abrupt halt the subsidies for electric vehicles and car parking. Did the Minister agree with this decision?
Yes, sir, I did, and I in fact consulted with the former Minister for the Infrastructure. We had considerable discussions around this. The question that we have to face here is a complex one, and it relates to the fact that as we increase the uptake of electric vehicles, then the tax take will change according to different, as we reduce our dependence on fuel duty and so on. It would also be the case that in case of car parking, that if we keep paying for the free car parking for all electric vehicles under all circumstances, then the car parking fund, trading fund, which pays for redevelopment of the car parks and so on, will get less income. We did not, however, rule out the possibility for having further incentives in terms of electric car parking, for electric vehicles. We simply said that it would no longer be paid for out of the infrastructure budget. The opportunity still exists for us to come forward this year with an alternative scheme paid for out of the Climate Emergency Fund, and that is something we will consider, but we will obviously consider it in the light of all the other competing demands on the Climate Emergency Fund.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Yes, sir. Given the urgency and need to reduce carbon emissions, did the Minister think this was sending out the right message? I mean, he's mentioned the Climate Emergency Fund. I agree that somewhere that should certainly be looked at. It's there to be a source of expenditure for projects tackling the climate emergency. Or did he also consider the option of phasing out or reducing the subsidy?
We looked at various options, and this is indeed a phase out because we have agreed 1 more year for this scheme. And as I say, it keeps open the option for us to consider extending the scheme or perhaps having more targeted schemes. There's been interesting suggestions to me since we made the announcement about how we might target the scheme, particularly on, say, particular car parks that are underused or whatever, and use that to change behaviour. And I think that would be good. Does it send the right signal? Well, I think we've got that difficult balancing act when we're encouraging a transition like this of when do we start withdrawing subsidies, when is a critical mass reached where the change we're asking for may begin to happen anyway. I think that's something we keep under review. We still have other incentive schemes in place in regards to electric vehicles, and those also need to be kept under review. So I think this is a balancing act. I continue to listen to representations and to the debate on this. I think it's a good debate to have, and I will be more than happy to continue that debate because we do have this year to potentially put in place another scheme. Thank you, sir.
Constable St John.
Thank you, sir. Sir, has the Minister sought any assurances from the Chief Minister that he will retain his current responsibilities for planning matters if P1 is not successful? And if so, has that assurance been forthcoming?
So the Chief Minister has, of course, the perfect right to consider the distribution of portfolios between ministers and the responsibilities that accrue to them. These things are debated in the ministerial team. I can say that there are no current plans to move the portfolio, and the matter, I'm sure, will remain under review. I would also say that the way that we try and resolve these things is through discussion, and those discussions happen. And I also would say that I'm committed to trying to find collective ways forward on this. I know that we have agreed that we will have a Council of Ministers session on planning to look at all the ministerial inputs into that, so that we come to collective positions. And this is not just a matter for me and the Chief Minister. So I think I can give those reassurances to the committee.
Supplemental question,
Yes, sir. Sir, has the Minister had to make any concessions to retain the support of the Chief Minister?
I wouldn't say concessions, sir, because that implies that I've been under some kind of pressure. I think we've had constructive discussions. How you want to how you want to characterise those is a matter of linguistics. I've outlined the position we have at the moment. I think it's a position that shows that in ministerial government we engage in constructive discussions, and that will always be my preference, to try and find a constructive way forward. And I believe in this case we have found a constructive way forward, and I'm very happy to support it on that basis.
Deputy Taddy.
So will the Minister clarify whether or not the home energy service or the home energy audits are still being offered by his department, and if not, why not?
I hope the member will forgive me for looking through my notes, because it's something that I have to get the actual position correct. Yes, the home energy audit subsidy has actually been very, very successful. It's seen a dramatic increase in uptake, and it remains the case that, for example, a valid energy performance certificate is needed to be eligible for the low carbon heating incentive. It has now exceeded the target of 800 incentives that were planned to be delivered under that subsidy. So we have to consider what we're going to do with it, and in fact, there's been 1,360 home energy audits under that scheme, so considerably above the target. So we will gradually decrease the funding available until the energy performance certificates become mandatory. The first decrease will happen on the 1st of March this year, where the amount will decrease from £200 to £100 for 1 to 2 bedroom properties, and from £250 to £150 for properties with 3 or more bedrooms. And we plan to reduce it by a further £50 on the 1st of January next year. Thank you, sir.
So on the one hand, there's a partial subsidy for getting your home audited to see if it's efficient for energy. In 2012, there was a rollout of a free home insulation scheme, which was means tested, that allowed actually people to be able to insulate their home. So could the Minister clarify currently, if you get an audit done for your home and you realise that the home is very energy inefficient and it leaks heat, what does one do then if one has no money to fix the home? Is there an insulation scheme that you can apply to?
Yes, so through the carbon neutral roadmap, we've been providing incentives to decarbonise homes, the electric heating incentive, and that can include measures for insulation as well. So, in fact, that's the point of doing the energy performance assessment before you do allocate the grants, is to work out what is the most cost-effective measures that can be put in place. Obviously, that will hopefully include decarbonising the boiler, but it will also include the energy performance measures in many cases, because in order to make the value proposition work, in other words, in order to make sure that the consumer gains lower bills, the insulation is also important, and that is included to, I'm afraid I don't have the figures off the top of my head, the exact amounts, but there are many amounts in that heating incentive to do that.
Thank you, sir. Developing on from the point made by the Constable of St John regarding portfolios just now, it's been suggested that the transport element of the infrastructure portfolio would move to the Environment Minister's area. Could the Minister tell the members if that is the case, and what will be the advantages? Thank you, sir.
So, as I've said, the Chief Minister is in charge of moving portfolios, not me. I would say this, it is certainly not something I've requested. I don't think there's a current plan to do so. You're probably best off directing that question to the Chief Minister. But the portfolio I have is one with which I am comfortable. But as I say, I think that it needs to be, these things should be kept under review. It is sensible to keep them under review. These things should be considered not just in the case of one portfolio, but they should be considered in the light of all the portfolio responsibilities, and that is a sensible way to do it.
Supplemental question, Conrad?
Thank you, sir. Notwithstanding personalities involved, will the Minister agree that the synergies with his department are less attractive than those of transport with the infrastructure department, whereby a lot of the island's infrastructure actually is under the roads and they seem to be inexorably linked. Would he agree that it is probably not the best idea to split it out of infrastructure? Thanks.
So I think, as with all these things, there are arguments both ways. Certainly at the moment, the transport portfolio is integrated well into the infrastructure department, and that should be a significant factor. It's also the case that we have a sustainable transport policy that is designed to have significant impacts in terms of net zero and so on, and that might be considered to be something that is an environmental issue. My own view is that these two things sit at the moment in the same department, infrastructure and environment. Therefore, there is already the capability to work reasonably well together in those overlapping areas. But as I say, I think it is something that should be reviewed all the time. Those sorts of questions of delivery of services and of policy are live discussions, and we should always be keeping a relatively open mind about how we do those, how we organise those portfolios.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Has the Minister done any work in terms of addressing the potential conflict of having the Environment and Infrastructure Department combined under one Chief Officer?
So I think this question may, if I may make an assumption, it refers to the planning element of the portfolio. When that department was created, my understanding is that very clear boundaries were put in. The Group Director of Regulation post was created, and walls were put in place to ensure that the Chief Officer did not and could not instruct or influence the Group Director on issues of planning decision-making and related matters. So the issue has been addressed. If the wider question is addressed, should there be separate portfolios anyway, I think on balance, my view at the moment would be that they should be separate. I, however, I'm not racing to sort of make that change. My experience of organisational changes in my previous life was that by far the most important thing to achieve efficiency and delivery was to have the right people following clear policies and motivated to do so. And that, rather than organisational change, was the best method of achieving success. But if you were asking me whether I would support that, on the balance, at the moment, I would support splitting the departments and having separate departments. But I remain reasonably open-minded about that and would listen to the arguments when we came to consider it.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. What knowledge does the Minister have with respect to the working of ethical walls, and to what extent does he believe that the public itself has confidence in the current arrangement?
Two very different questions there, sir. I have some knowledge of those walls because it frequently comes up that we have issues that are where the infrastructure department is the applicant in a situation, and obviously the planning department will be determining that application. In my experience, those walls work, they work well, and I don't have concerns around them. The question of whether the public has confidence is a good one. There are many aspects. Planning is, of course, highly controversial in many different respects, and it is there is a continual need to explain the situation with regard to all different aspects of planning policy, planning determinations, and so on. And it's possible that is something that the Minister, that I should give more attention to. I cannot answer whether the public have confidence in that particular aspect of the split between environment and planning determinations. My guess would be that it isn't something the public consider on a regular basis. But
Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. Please could the Minister remind us of the timetable for energy performance certificates? Thank you, sir.
I think, sir, with the greatest of respect, I did that. I'm slightly reluctant to use up question time repeating myself, but the home energy... I'm sorry, I should seek clarification. Does this question relate to the home energy audit subsidy that I spoke about earlier?
No, sir, it was just about whether we're going to carry, the intention is to have energy performance certificates for everyone who is intending to buy or rent, and what the timetable is, please, sir.
So we announced last year that we were postponing the intent to require energy performance certificates. I will have to clarify that. Actually, I'm getting confused in my mind between between the energy performance certificates and meeting the standard. I think what I could say is this:
I'm afraid the time has run out for questions to you, Minister, and it's not generally I've started, so I'll finish, I'm afraid.
So I apologise.
Even though we have managed that.
If I may say, I will clarify the matter with the
yes,
member.
if your indication, you will clarify it further outside the Assembly. Indeed. Yes. We come now to the second period of questions, which is directed to the Minister for External Relations. Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Could the Minister please provide an update on the position of the island with respect to pressure from the UK for the island to make registers of beneficial ownership public, and whether the European Union have confirmed Jersey's data protection laws are acceptable to it?
Minister.
Thank you, sir. My first, delighted to answer the first question that I've done in 6 months since coming back, and I'm grateful for members and the scrutiny panel. The Chair asked really two important questions on beneficial ownership. The position the island has taken is a leadership position. We are the only and first jurisdictions with a vetted and verified beneficial ownership register accessed by law enforcement agencies. It was, as the Deputy rightly says, the subject of a parliamentary discussion in the House of Commons by Dame Margaret Hodge. Some issues were raised. What I can say is that the island's position on beneficial ownership registers is that we should not make them public. However, we will and have committed to allow potentially legitimate interest. Legitimate interest is an important issue, both for relations with the UK and the EU. It's something that Ireland and Luxembourg has followed, and we'll be working, and I'll be working with the Minister for Financial Services on that, and the Treasury Minister in relation to that issue. And on that data protection issue, I can say to the Chair that I understand that we received yesterday, or in the last couple of days, compliance of EU data protection across the EU, which is of huge benefit to the island after a number of years.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
No, sir, I'll let others ask.
Well, Deputy Tadier.
Thank you, sir. So on the 18th of February 2003, the States Assembly debated and approved P12 2003, which agreed that the Assembly would oppose the then imminent invasion of Iraq by the British and American forces. Does the External Relations Minister envisage a scenario, just to add that, of course, that was considered in order, does the External Relations Minister envisage a situation where the Assembly could be asked to make a similar decision about the Israel attack in Gaza, which is killing tens of thousands of civilians, including women and children, which some are calling a genocide?
I'm grateful for the Deputy's question, sir, and I recognise absolutely that we are living in a world of conflict. We are living in a world of conflict when we say that for Israel and Palestine. We've seen recently the issues in Yemen, which are linked to that. Members will be aware, as stated in our common external relations policy, that we seek to promote Jersey's international identity. We seek to be a responsible community, but we are under the UK position in relation to foreign policy. We can make our views known, and we do so, but ultimately the constitutional position is one that the UK government is responsible for ultimately our international relations and military action, such as been taken recently. We can express a view, and we do so forthrightly, and I do so in my role in various places. In fact, I did so in Rwanda over the weekend on a private visit.
Supplemental question, Deputy Tadier.
So whilst that's true, sir, Jersey is increasingly wanting to find its international voice and speak for itself, and of course we know that the Assembly can make its own voice heard. We have a situation whereby we do live in a world of conflict, but the US seems to side with one particular party and it's the only country in the whole of the UN that has voted against a ceasefire, with the UK abstaining and therefore tacitly supporting US foreign policy. Is it satisfactory that Jersey, with its own assembly, with potentially its own voice...
Could you pause, Deputy? I'm not sure we're quorate.
Are we counting online, sir?
Sorry? Oh, and we have a number online. Thank you for that, Deputy. Yes, very well. Please do continue. Trouble is out of sight, out of mind sometimes.
The question is, given the fact that the US and the UK cannot speak for us in Jersey, is it legitimate and even desirable, but certainly is it legitimate that this Assembly should have a say on what we think the UK should be doing in the region?
So I absolutely understand what the Deputy said, and I respect that individual members of this Assembly and our community may hold different views. And that's why we have concentrated locally, having said there's constitutional position, that we focus very much on the local message of solidarity and peace and the importance of that. And that's why the unity statement that we did very visibly, I attended the mosque and our Jewish community their weekly event, as well as Christian communities. What I would say is that in supporting a ceasefire, we would go beyond the UK government policy and indeed that of the opposition party in the UK, who have decided to support the humanitarian pauses. I'm well aware that these issues are of personal interest to many members. We can express our views, but ultimately the constitutional position is as I said. But that doesn't stop us from having the freedom of speech and members asking questions as the Deputy has rightly done so.
Are there any other questions for this Minister? Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir, and for allowing me to have just another one. I would like to ask the Minister, has he been looking into these media reports about potential loss of atoll protection for Jersey residents when holidaying abroad?
That's a very relevant question to external relations, because I am advised, and the Minister, the Chair would expect me, and indeed other members, to be on the case. And what I have found out last night is that this is a civil aviation matter. It falls within the Department of Transport in the UK. The scheme of atoll is under a UK regulation passed in 2012. It's been updated, and it does say that the atoll scheme at a fee of £2.50 is available to UK residents. Currently, so that means our inbound arrangements for the majority of people that are buying package holidays are secure. What is not clear, and hasn't been for some time, but we will now clarify, is the position of the CD residents. It was assumed that they were included in it. It's a good example of a UK law, a UK regulation that affects Jersey, and that interpretation is that it is not covered. We now know that situation. Officials met yesterday, and I'll be working with the Minister for Economic Development in order to understand that issue, because it seems, as of today, that CD residents who are paying the £2.50 might not be in future covered by package holiday if a business went bust. And so and I'll keep members updated on what I find out, but that's the news that I have of yesterday.
Any other questions for this Minister? Deputy Andrews.
Thank you, sir. Can the Minister for External Relations confirm whether he is in communications with any other state regarding bilateral investment treaties?
It's a good job, so I have my notes, because that is a very good question. We have a number of agreements that this External Relations Minister with other ministers is dealing with. Bilateral investment treaties are being, I can say, advanced with, we're the only Crown dependency to actually have the ability to do bilateral investment treaties, and there are a number of them being advanced. I'm looking for the list of them. If I can't find them, I will give them, but Rwanda is one. There are a whole range of issues. I think probably the best thing I do is I publish the list. I think it is in the department's annual plan of exactly which ones of FTAs free trade agreements, bilateral investment treaties, DTAs that we are actually are dealing with. I know that we've got a DTA with Ukraine underway. Israel has one. Also, there is a number of these agreements, and bilateral investment treaties are an important signal of confidence between jurisdictions about investment. And I'll publish the list after today.
Supplemental question, Deputy? Does anyone else have a question for the Minister for External Relations? No one else has any questions for this Minister? Then this period of questions is over, and the remaining question time is allocated to questions to the Chief Minister. Deputy Catherine Curtis.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister provide some details to the States Assembly on the £30 million of cuts which she announced to the Chamber of Commerce last week?
Thank you, sir. Sir, it is important as a government that we ensure that our spending is balanced and wise, but sometimes our appetite to do things and deliver is bigger than our ability to achieve them. So we are therefore taking a look at our list of particularly capital projects and ensuring that we have both the ability to deliver them and that we can, where possible, return money to our stabilisation fund to ensure that our finances are secure and sound in the current global situation.
Supplemental, Deputy?
Yes, please. So that's a no then. Does the Chief Minister think it's good practice to announce potential changes to the government plan to outside organisations before informing the States Assembly?
So this is a commitment to put money back in our stabilisation fund, and we are confident that we have a way of doing it. For years and years, the successive governments have set out plans to deliver large projects and they have not been achieved. We're simply being realistic about what we can achieve and ensuring that we maintain stable finances.
Sir, could I raise a point of order, please? That question didn't directly address that answer didn't directly address the question that that Deputy Curtis had asked, which is about the appropriateness of these announcements coming outside the Assembly. The answer the Chief Minister gave was a justification for the policy, not how the policy was transmitted, so it wasn't relevant.
Thank you very much. I was on that. That is true, Chief Minister. You were asked about the mechanism for delivery of the information as opposed to the content and justification of the information itself.
Of course, sir. I was simply pointing out that for years and years there has been a cycle of listing projects and not always completing them. So I'm happy to brief members when we have a firm position, and I would like to do so. In fact, I look forward to being able to do so.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you. My colleague asked part of the questions I wanted to ask, so I'll switch. In the statement made to highlight the priorities for the next year, the Chief Minister said that she would want to bring the fun again in 4th Region. How is she intending to do that?
So, when we entered government, there was a plan for Fort Regent. It was a plan that was unaffordable, unachievable and undeliverable. So we have spent some time considering, firstly, the condition of the building, its structure and its soundness. Those are the first things to do. And once we're assured of that, then we are considering the way forward to ensure that this vital piece of infrastructure, a place where islanders enjoyed fun, activities for a variety of reasons, a place where visitors to the island could find entertainment on wet weather days. We want to get back to that position, and we believe that working with our partners, we can find a simple opportunity to improve that piece of infrastructure and revive it, which so that it can be that place of fun that it was once for so many islanders.
Supplementary question, Debbie?
Yes, thank you. When does the Chief Minister think would be able to see the soonest the Fort Regent in full use again?
Well, so that will be dependent upon, obviously, achieving the plans, ensuring that the structure is sound. We're still waiting for the final report and then being able to deliver it. And so it will be, there isn't a fixed date at the moment, but what's important is having a plan and then working out how one can deliver it.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The government plan made it barely a week into its time before being unilaterally changed by the Chief Minister without reference to the Assembly that had only approved it just days before. Could the Chief Minister inform the Assembly very specifically when she decided that the spending in capital projects and funding allocated to the Strategic Reserve, which this Assembly had approved just days previously, was not her intention to abide by?
Sir, the government plan was supported by a majority of the Assembly, a strong majority of the Assembly, and well, I hope that we will continue to hold that majority today. So the finances are a constant source of our interest, and as the year comes to an end, it is an opportunity to take stock of our position, and that is what we are doing. And we, through not carrying forward monies, believe that we should be able to shore up our stabilisation fund and provide the public with reassurance that our public finances are being well cared for into next year and beyond.
I think the question, Chief Minister, was as to the timing of the announcement that you made out with the Assembly, and when you had formed the view that that was an announcement that could be made in light of the adoption of the government plan. I wonder if you're able to assist with that.
So it's an ongoing process of considering our position and considering how we move forward. There are quarterly reports and everybody will have noticed the year came to an end. That is a time to take stock of a financial position and how best we move forward as the year begins.
Supplemental question, Deputy Minister.
Thanks, sir. And I guess it would just be a repeat of the first question because we're still none the wiser on when that decision was actually made. Chief Minister, give us a date.
So we conducted a discussion in a Council of Ministers meeting last Tuesday.
Deputy Tadia.
Thanks, sir. Will the Chief Minister confirm whether at any point in the last few weeks she had considered changing her Environment Minister and Assistant Minister, and in fact will she confirm whether she had been in talks with other members of her Cabinet to offer that job to somebody else?
So part of my role is to keep a constant watch that we're meeting our priorities and that we're progressing on what is both important to islanders and what we've been committed to do in our delivery plans. That sometimes means flexing the team, ensuring that they're well positioned, and that's something that we talk about openly and we consider. It would be wrong if I did not.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
Does flexing the team mean maybe sacking somebody and getting somebody new in? And could you clarify what that word means?
It means simply that. That's something that is a matter of consideration in all areas all of the time. And I am very comfortable with the team I have around the Council of Ministers table. I think we have a talented group of people. I think islanders generally see that we have the most talented, it is often said publicly, the most talented group that the island has had for a very long time. We have 2 PhDs, we have 1 MBA, we have 2 accountants, 1 lawyer, a considerable talent. And my job is to ensure that they're both all meeting their talents and delivering on our agenda for the public.
Deputy Feltham.
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister explain to the Assembly what went wrong within the government planning process that meant that the government put forward a government plan that only weeks after its approval it is now saying is unachievable?
That's not the case, sir. We do not think that the government plan is unachievable. We think the government plan is a good blueprint for managing our finances and moving forward as an island and navigating these difficult times. What we now consider, having passed the year end, is that we may be able to put more money back into our stabilisation fund, and we're committed to looking at how we best do that.
Supplemental question, Deputy?
Thank you, sir. Could the Chief Minister then perhaps enlighten the Assembly as to how the Value for Money programme will ensure that the right decisions are made about where those savings are made?
Well, the Value for Money programme continues within the Treasury with a talented team of people working on it. We're committed to delivering value for money. We're committed to productivity in our wider economy and productivity in our public service too.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. Did the Chief Minister support the shelving of the ALO Value for Money review of arm's length organisation by the Minister for Sustainable Economy?
This is a matter, sir, that I would like to sit down and perhaps address with the Minister for Sustainable Economic Development, the Minister for Treasury and Resources, and the Chair of the Scrutiny Panel. I think that somewhere wires have been a bit muddled. One thing that we're committed to doing as a government, we set out to do in the beginning, is to ensure that our work with our ALOs, our arm's length organisations, is delivering the best value for islanders. I know that those cut across different areas, both in the Treasury and in the Department for the Economy. Just as I'm looking and ensuring that we're all politically moving in the right areas, I think this is an area of focus and an area that we've committed to focusing, ensuring that we're holding those teams to account, that they're delivering for the public, and I would happily sit down with the chair of the panel to discuss that.
Supplemental question, Deputy Scott.
Sir, does the Chief Minister, with respect to the review, accept that having established it initially as an in-house review is the best way to proceed in the circumstances?
I believe that we have talented people in-house who are able to do that review and that work, that they're there to support us, to advise us politically, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of that discussion with both the Treasury and the economy teams.
Deputy Southern.
Thank you, sir. Once again, the Chief Minister refers to increasing productivity, and no matter how talented her advisors and economists might be, does she not accept that the process of trying to increase productivity is only going to lead to 20 more years of flatlining?
I most certainly hope not, sir. What's important in the next 20 years is that Jersey remains a competitive jurisdiction, an outward-looking jurisdiction, and a strong economy. We have many competing challenges, sir. We have a declining birth rate, and we have we have many challenges. So we have to look at those challenges. We have to consider how best we put our feet forward. And sir, I believe we have the right plan to do that.
Supplemental question, Deputy Southern.
Yes, if I may, sir. What specific plans does a Chief Minister have to improve productivity in the island?
Well, sir, under the guidance of our interim chief executive, we're looking at how we make a more efficient public service. That means harnessing the technology that the previous government invested in, ensuring that people are spending their time focused on what they are doing, and that we are being productive and efficient and focused on, and so that we can do that.
So that was nowhere near an answer to the question as to what specifically does she have in mind. It was just vague waffle, sir.
So the role of a chief minister is to set a political agenda, to set the path, and it is a role of officials to manage and to deliver upon that agenda. I believe that we have a good team of officials who understand that we need to deliver efficiency, but we need to do that while still investing in our critical services and ensuring that we can treat our sick, we can teach our kids, and we can keep people safe.
Second question, Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. The Chief Minister referred earlier to Jersey being competitive. The Statistics Jersey report recently showed that in each of the last 2 years, Jersey had suffered a net loss of 900 locally qualified people, which sounds to me like somewhere else might be a bit more competitive when it comes to living standards and opportunities for working people than Jersey. Has the government done any analysis of these figures to understand why there's been such a jump in the amount of locally qualified people leaving the islands to seek better futures elsewhere?
So we're constantly looking at the figures, and this is why we've committed to making the island a community where everyone can thrive. It may sound like a high principle, but it's about ensuring that people have quality of life. And here comes the politics. One of our areas of relentless focus and one of our 5 priorities for this year is housing. And we can see that that's one of the key factors, because it's one of the highest costs in a household budget, that we have to address. And we have been bringing forward measures to enable islanders to best manage those costs. We've increased stamp duty rates for first-time buyers to £700,000 to help young islanders get on the property ladder. We've released that £10 million for a shared equity scheme to help islanders get on the property ladder. We believe in home ownership. We also believe in supply. And as we discovered at the beginning of our term, one of the things that was holding back supply was the lack of infrastructure. And so we now have a plan to upgrade our sewage system so that we have the drainage available so that we can build more homes.
Supplemental question, Deputy.
So does the Chief Minister ever wonder why nobody's convinced by what she said, and why, when we see opinion polls that were done in the run-up to today's States debate, and the feedback we've had from constituents has been one of despair at the lack of action undertaken by the government? Has she done any introspection on that in advance of today?
One always reflects on the position. Part of my job is to listen. I listen and I understand that there will be people who are frustrated, but there are also people who are very supportive. And I've been really comforted by the many messages of support I have received from people I know, people I don't know, people I've supported in my constituency and across the island over the years. So I won't please everybody all of the time. People have different opinions. What I understood early on in my career is that you have to be true to yourself, you have to do what you believe is right. And I believe that the public, when they go out to vote, they vote for people who they believe will exercise judgment that they identify with. I respect and value the role of the Reform Party who have their politics, they have their principles and their approach. Mine is different, but people also appreciate and value that different approach. We have long-term issues to deal with. Renewing infrastructure that has been left for many years is a long-term approach, but we are focused on delivering it, and we have a plan to do so.
Deputy Rob Ward.
Thank you, sir. Can I ask the Chief Minister, earlier on the Chief Minister stated that the largest teaching union accepted the offer. Can I ask the Minister how she gathers data on the size of union membership? Thank you, sir.
We can, sir, as I stated in my earlier answers under oral questions, the organisation is not able to hold that specific data. But what we have received is indications of numbers of membership, and that is all I know, a high-level figure. We are aware, sir, that there are some teachers that belong to both unions, and, sir, it's important that we continue to work towards towards finding a solution so that our children can be educated and not disrupted in their education.
Think so, supplementary?
Indeed, yes.
May I ask the Minister, if it should turn out that the data has changed and actually the largest union is the one that's rejected the pay offer, would it change the approach of the State's Employment Board, the somewhat draconian approach they're taking to teachers on this INU?
I don't believe we've taken a draconian approach, sir. I believe that we've written to teachers because we want to pay those who have agreed with our approach and our offer to them. We want to be able to make that payment, and we have sought advice to figure out the best way to approach that.
And has brought this period of questions to an end.
Oh, so the second part wasn't answered, that was the first part.
Well, there wouldn't be time to answer it in any event now.
So may I just answer the question that Deputy Andrews asked me?
No, I'm afraid not. The period is over. You can ask it. You can, of course, convey that information outside the Assembly.
I will do so. It's just two countries. Yeah.
Very well. That concludes the period for question time. There's nothing under J and K. We therefore come on to public business. The first item of public business listed in this meeting is the vote of no confidence in the Chief Minister, P1, lodged by Deputy Binet of St Saviour. Before I ask the greffier to read the proposition, can I remind members of a couple of matters that apply to this debate? In line with standing orders, once Deputy Binet has made the proposition, the debate will open in the usual way. The Chief Minister will have the opportunity to speak, as will all members. Once all members who wish to speak have spoken, unusually for other debates, the Chief Minister will be given a second opportunity to speak. But once she has given that second speech, then Deputy Binet will be invited to reply and sum up, after which the Assembly will move to a vote, for which a simple majority applies. In line with Standing Order 104A, neither of the speeches given by the Chief Minister nor the making of the proposition or in the summing up by Deputy Binet are subject to the time limit of 15 minutes. That time limit applies to all other speeches, though, in the usual way. If members will forgive me, I might also add that whilst it's generally the case that this sort of debate gives rise by its very nature to greater discussion of an individual member than might usually be the case, members should ensure that comments they make in speeches do not fall foul of Standing Order 104 regarding the content of speeches, particularly in the use of language employed about a member, the imputation of improper motives or the reference to the private affairs of a member, unless those items are of direct relevance to the subject matter under discussion. With those words, I will ask the greffier to read.
So before you do that, I know I wasn't here at the very beginning. Have we established whether or not we will be sitting late tonight? I think it's important that members can organise their timetables, and I think it's important that we have clarity, not least for the mover of the proposition and the recipient of the vote of no confidence.
Well, I mean, it may be we're now at 11:30. It may be that that's a matter that can be considered by the chair of PPC as we see how the debate. But if it is the case that you wish to bring a proposition about sitting late, or the chair of PPC wishes to make any observations, then that would be possible.
So I'd like to propose, I mean, I'm speaking from a personal point of view. If we were to sit late tonight, I would have to make arrangements and let people know, because I have an appointment, which I obviously can change, but it's important to let people know as far in advance as possible. I'm sure I'm not the only one in that situation. I would like to make the proposition that we do finish at 5:30 today. We've got 3 sittings, 3 days of sitting if we need them, and to come back tomorrow and finish this. But of course, it doesn't stop us from finishing this item today if we need to. I'm not sure if that's in order, sir, given the fact that we normally finish at 5:30 anyway.
I think you're simply making a proposition that we do what we've always done, or almost always done. And no, I don't think you can make a proposition. The fact is the Assembly is in standing orders, finishes at 5:30. And of course, at any point, a member can stand up and wish that time brought forward or indeed push back. And so any decision made now wouldn't be binding on the Assembly in the light of a later decision. So can I assume that what you're really asking, if I may put words in your mouth, is that urgent consideration is given to whether it is necessary to stay late, and perhaps that that can be communicated to members, perhaps by the chair of PPC, in order that they can make the necessary arrangements. But I'm afraid, as of now, the Assembly will finish at 5:30 or thereabouts as soon as the adjournment
So
is
I do have a proposition I could make, which I think may be in order. Could I propose that we don't sit any later than 6:30 today?
Yes, I think that's a proposition that you can make. Is that proposition seconded? Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Proposition is the Assembly does not sit later than 6:30 today, irrespective of the stage in which business has reached. I have to inform members, even if adopted, it will be amenable to another proposition brought on another occasion to change that timing, but it is nonetheless something on which the Assembly can legitimately vote. Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show.
Call for the appel.
The appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. The proposition is that the Assembly shall not sit beyond 6:30 p.m. this evening. If a vote pour will mean that that is the current decision of the States Assembly, a vote contre will mean that it's not, and standing orders continue to obtain. Chair of PPC?
As Chair of PPC, we thought it was only right that we asked the mover of the proposition and the Chief Minister whether they would like to conclude business today, and they had both affirmed that they'd rather stay late, so that's why. And I spoke to the GREF, and we were going to make a proposition after lunch, seeing how, because we weren't sure what time the debate was going to start today.
Well, yes, it would...
Point of order, please, sir.
Oh, yes, it is right. The Chair of PPC should have made those observations during the course of the speech. However, we're dealing with arrangements for the state's own business and we're trying to be as flexible in what is arguably a challenging situation. But I take the point, Deputy, that's not wrong to make it. Well, the position is we have a vote. It's duly seconded. The vote is that the Assembly does not continue beyond 6:30. A vote against will simply leave at the moment standing orders obtaining, which is a 5:30 finish. A vote pour will enshrine that as the current decision of the Assembly, but it is always open to the Chair of PPC to bring another proposition immediately after lunch, and indeed that proposition has been foreshadowed now by what the Chair of PPC has said. The appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seats, and I ask the greffier to open the voting. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been defeated, 18 votes pour, 28 votes contre, 2 abstentions. Accordingly, as things currently stand, the Assembly will adjourn at the normal time at 5:30, but that's subject to any proposition that might be brought to different effect during the course of the day. Very well. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States were asked to decide whether they are of opinion that they have no confidence in the Chief Minister.
Deputy Minister.
Sir, there's no easy way to open a debate of this sort. By its very nature, it's evidence of a situation that's become untenable. In this case, a crisis of confidence in our leadership. As the person responsible for crystallising the position, I must say from the outset that I take no pleasure whatsoever in bringing this proposition to the Assembly. Indeed, the entire process and the lead up to it has been a depressing affair. No doubt that's the case for all concerned, especially the Chief Minister herself. That said, after 18 months in office and having witnessed a great many things that I believe to be wrong, misguided or inappropriate, I feel an absolute obligation to seek the Assembly's approval for change. Accordingly, this proposition seeks to provide the Assembly with the opportunity to review the quality of our leadership in this term of office and to decide whether a change might be of benefit to the future well-being of the island. It's also a response to a request for action by several other members of the Assembly. In advancing this debate myself, there are a number of important points that I'd like to make clear from the outset. Firstly, I come to it with what I would refer to, sir, as a clean pair of hands. By that, I mean that I haven't done any deals with or made any promises to anyone. I haven't asked a single member to speak in favour of the proposition, nor have I sought to arrange the order in which they may choose to speak. In short, any comments in favour of the proposition will be the thoughts and feelings of each individual, unfettered by me. With regard to the timing of and reasons for this debate, I've come under considerable criticism from several ministers and assistant ministers in recent days. So I'd like to address these before proceeding, if I may. On social media, Deputy Stevenson had this to say: "Timing and this context speaks volumes, in my view, designed to personally attack, stress and disrupt." In a recent BBC interview, the Deputy Chief Minister, Deputy Morrell, stated the following: "The idea of upending an entire government because somebody doesn't like someone else's style is a really poor place to be." Then this offering from the Minister for External Relations, Deputy Joseph: "It's upsetting to see that there is still misogyny at work in politics," adding, "The Chief Minister has suffered from allegations that would not be made against a man." And finally, it would appear, albeit very cautiously, the Chief Minister herself has gone on to endorse the misogyny claim several times in her Jersey Evening Post Saturday interview. So, apart from being rather rude and quite unnecessary, these comments suggest that the Chief Minister and her closest advisers are reluctant to face reality. With regard to the timing of this debate, it had absolutely nothing to do with wanting to cause stress to anyone or to disrupt anything. The reasons were quite simple and could easily have been deduced with a little thought. Having had serious and long-running concerns about the Chief Minister's continuing support for the Health Minister, both Deputy Rose Bennett and I did consider resigning in November at the same time as Constable Andy Jale. However, we took the view that it would not be in the public interest to do so before the government plan had been agreed and the £52 million secured for the next phase of the new hospital project. Though a final decision hadn't yet been made, I could have announced a vote of no confidence immediately after the government plan debate. But that would have done nothing more than cast a dark shadow over the entire Christmas and New Year period, not only for the Chief Minister, but for the Council, the Assembly and the public at large. As it happens, after months of careful consideration, the final decision to lodge the proposition was only taken on the 30th of December. And as members will know, a 2-week lodging period is required, meaning that if the matter was to be determined at the first available opportunity, everything had to be submitted to the GREF by Tuesday the 2nd of January. It struck me that the timing of this decision was also in the public interest insofar as it would deal with the unpleasant but necessary event before the business of 2024 commenced, leaving a full 2 years plus before the next election, sir. As for the reasons for this debate, I believe the vast majority of the Assembly won't need me to explain that they run a lot deeper than wanting to launch a personal attack on the Chief Minister or a simple dislike of her style. As for the claims of misogyny, sir, I think members are quite capable of making up their own mind. Moving to the substance of the debate and the real reasons for its submission, I must confess that I don't relish the prospect of articulating the details contained in my report, and I do hope everybody's had the opportunity to read it, sir. I am reliably informed that it'll be essential to do this in order to inform members of matters that may not have come to their attention. So with that in mind, I'll share my experiences and observations, reluctantly, in the order in which they presented themselves to me. In relation to the conduct of the Chief Minister, it will come as no surprise to members that my earliest concern was the treatment by her of our previous Chief Executive Officer. Whilst the saga may have ended many months ago, it doesn't change the facts. In case members suspect that I'm acting on hearsay, I can confirm that I've actually seen the former CEO leaving the Chief Minister's office in tears. I also witnessed the Chief Minister addressing her in a disgraceful manner in front of her team. The same thing was done to the project leader of the new hospital project, another lady, sir, as it happens, in front of her team in my presence. On both occasions, I attempted to intervene because in both cases the Chief Minister was wrong in her assertions. But on both occasions I was told, in most unpleasant terms, that I was to wait until she had finished. Between the formation of this new government and the time the former CEO decided to depart, I watched her deteriorate, not through pressure of work, of which there was a great deal, but due to poor treatment. And this is not just pure conjecture, sir. Indeed, such was my concern that I had several private conversations with her on the subject. In no small part, some of the animosity appeared to stem from the Chief Minister's dislike of working with senior people employed by the previous Chief Minister, a point that the Chief Minister articulated very openly in front of me. Some other ministers did share my concerns, and I recall one in particular who appeared deeply upset after a visit to the former CEO's office on the day of her resignation. I recall one of the comments that person made to me in a lengthy conversation shortly after, that being, "It isn't right, is it?" And of course it wasn't, sir. Having employed a good many people over the years and served for about 4 years on our local employment forum, I can comfortably say that should the former CEO have taken her full case to the Commissioner for Standards, our Chief Minister would have been asked to step down. It may well be that this particular incident came to a close months ago, sir, but these are important matters and wholly indicative of an individual's culture and modus operandi. Leaving aside the all-important moral aspects of the situation, what of the practical and financial consequences? Well, we managed to lose a very well-respected and much-liked chief officer with 15 months' experience in the job. Given the fact that the underlying circumstances were brought to public attention, correctly in my view, it will have done nothing for our reputation or our ability to recruit again for the long term. And there will be a cost involved, sir, both financial and operational, for the interruption of much-needed change management. First, through having to employ an interim, then a new long-term appointment, each needing a reasonable period of time to acquaint themselves with a complex organisation. With almost 9,000 people employed and a major job to undertake to repair the damage, certainly it's damage that I consider, sir, inflicted during the Parker regime, the unnecessary and timely loss of a CEO should have been viewed as something of a calamity. That was certainly my opinion. Sadly, having no experience of leadership or management, it's not surprising that this crucial point may not have even been recognised by our Chief Minister. For my part, I think these things really matter, sir. There can be no doubt that along with the rest of the world, Jersey is heading into very difficult times, and we carry with us a number of specific problems, not least of which is demographic change. The ratio of working to non-working people is set to decline, and more people are leaving the island. We're heavily reliant on the finance industry, which in turn is reliant upon the stability of world markets, all of which are under great pressure, the likes of which we've not experienced in our lifetime. Not least of which is the effect on international trade and finance of various geopolitical changes and associated military activity. Small as we may be, good leadership will be vital if we are to meet the challenges that await. All too often in recent times, the quality of leadership that these challenges will require hasn't been evident. Some failings may have been apparent to the general public and to members, but many more will only be known to those who have worked in close proximity, hence this proposition. So, one has to be cautious to avoid revealing matters in the public interest that would usually be best left unsaid. However, my own leadership and management experience suggests to me that a failure to identify and address the continued recurrence of seriously worrying traits eventually results in disaster. It's for this reason, and this reason only, that by way of example, I have to mention what I consider to have been the two highest risks that I've had to deal with in progressing the new hospital facilities project. And I'm sad to say that it's been the poor and inconsistent leadership of the Chief Minister and her reluctance to ever challenge the Health Minister, technically the client, whose attitude towards the hospital project and whose conduct throughout has been negative at best. In both cases, sir, an example of bad judgment by the Chief Minister. And aside of the Chief Minister's long-running refusal to deal with the problems caused by the Health Minister's lack of constructive engagement, the first major direct sign of trouble came last summer when I was summoned to head office and told in no uncertain terms that I was not to reveal our intended spending for the hospital project in the upcoming government plan. This, in my opinion, went very much against the apparent open and transparent policy that our Chief Minister promised when she took on the job. Instead, we were going to keep things quiet and request £52 million to see us through till next summer. at which point we would reveal our future intentions. That was completely opposite to the course of action that I'd been taking, given that I'd already explained to Scrutiny and others my intention to reveal the total intended spend for the remainder of the government term and explain, as much as was commercially responsible, what that money would be spent on. So, to my absolute horror, this coincided with suggestions by the Chief Minister that the decision to site the inpatient unit at Overdale and the outpatient unit in Gloucester Street should be reversed. This, despite all the evidence pointing very clearly to the contrary, an agreement having been reached by everybody else involved. Under the circumstances, I had no choice but to challenge the Chief Minister's decision, then set about arranging a series of meetings with the Treasury Minister and others to gain acceptance of my intention to be open and transparent, just as the Chief Minister had promised voters during her election campaign. I got permission eventually, but a state of total indecision remained. Everything was grinding to a halt because the Chief Minister was still having second thoughts about the entire project, and the Health Minister continued to be awkward and unhelpful. Either way, neither was prepared to endorse a course of action that had been agreed unanimously by them and everyone else up until that point. In an effort to solve the problem, we, the hospital team and I, arranged a meeting of the full oversight board to try to persuade them both of the need to provide some certainty, but even this failed to get the full endorsement required. Indeed, during that meeting, both ministers spent much of the time looking at their mobile phones under the table, which was highly discourteous and certainly didn't go unnoticed. It's something that gives rise to a lack of eye contact as well, sir. Difficult to get eye contact from people when you're looking at your phone. So it's difficult to describe the danger that's posed by this type of inconsistency. When a leader contemplates doing a complete volte-face 15 months into her own £700 million project, following 10 years of aborted schemes and almost £100 million of spending, it simply beggars belief. And this is something that should trouble everyone in this Assembly. Indeed, it should trouble everyone everywhere in the island, because if this is the sort of judgment that's being made on this project, what exactly is going on elsewhere? So I can only apologise to members for being so long-winded on these particular points, but I think it's vital for them to know how this leadership is actually working out in practice. Wavering, unfocused, indecisive, ill-disciplined, and all too often rude and thoughtless. More and equally unfortunate errors of judgment were apparent in November, when it emerged that the Health Minister intended to extend the contract of the Chair of the Health and Community Services Advisory Board. Following profound reservations about the cost of the board, it had long been understood that this would prove to be the last straw for Assistant Chief Minister, Constable Andy Jayon. His intended resignation was made known to the Chief Minister by Constable Jayon himself in plenty of time for the Chief Minister to alter the situation to his satisfaction. Yet, instead of standing by a man renowned for his support for her, she accepted this principled resignation, which must have been a very painful personal blow to him. It may only be speculation, but I was left with the impression that the resignation of a highly capable and trustworthy supporter was easier to manage than the difficult business of taking a decision to remove and replace a controversial minister. Moving to other more recent matters, and purely by way of additional example, one needs look no further than the conduct relating to the Les Sub-law planning application, where the issue was personalised rather than being dealt with procedurally. So the decision may not have been that which was desired, but perhaps an early meeting with the Assistant Minister responsible for it after the event and before public comment would have been the right behaviour for the leader of a Council of Ministers team. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Most recently, it has emerged that the Health Minister has been found by the Commissioner for Standards to have abused the powers of her position. Whilst this comes as no surprise to some members, the issue that gave rise to that finding provides yet another example of the Chief Minister's poor judgment and lack of leadership. It's clear from the Commissioner's report that the untruths contained in the letter from the Health Minister to the Chair of the Scrutiny Panel were made known to the Chief Minister during the course of the saga. Yet not only did the Chief Minister fail to intervene in order to bring the matter to a more seemly and just conclusion, she stepped back completely and recommended to her Council of Ministers that they abstain in the vote of no confidence. It's just fortunate that the matter was referred to the Commissioner, otherwise the injustice created by the Health Minister and condoned by the Chief Minister would never have been highlighted or brought to public attention. So in areas outside of my direct influence, I've been troubled by the complete lack of progress in sorting out what appears to me to be the muddled and bloated internal workings of the Broad Street operation. All too often, the civil service is blamed for being inefficient or too numerous. But it's not their fault, sir, it's ours. From my own experience, the structure needs fairly substantial revision. Various functions, HR, finance and policy, appear to have been over-centralised. In addition to this, the Council of Ministers meetings continue to be a case of ministers accepting policy by drip feed and suffering death by PowerPoint. Enormous policy documents continue to roll off the press and take their place on the shelf with all the others that ministers couldn't possibly find the time to read, let alone digest. This is not the way to lead a government, and if the Chief Minister is not removed from office, it will continue, because there is no sign that the problem has even been recognised, let alone dealt with. So I could go on, but surely this is enough. Other instances and details could be made available, but I hope the points already made will suffice to provide at least some indication of the current lack of clarity in leadership and the absence of judgment about the consequences of indecision and or poor decision making. Sadly, for many of us working close to the centre of power, the last 18 months has been a fairly miserable, depressing experience, and this includes our hard-working and dedicated staff, who, no fault of their own, get drawn into the less than happy atmosphere that persists. So I believe that if members are really honest with themselves, they do not need to look too far to realise how disappointed the people of Jersey are. Today, we, the members of the Assembly, have the opportunity to change that. Finally, sir, I'm aware that recently I've come in for criticism from some members for not revealing my thoughts on how the future might look in the event that the job of Chief Minister were to fall to me. That might well be a fair point, sir, but I would just remind those members that this debate is not about me. As I've made clear from the outset, it's simply an opportunity for members to review our current leadership. That said, it would be dismissive of me to ignore completely what is not an unreasonable inquiry. As members will know, the structure of this debate requires that I speak again at the end, and with that in mind, I'll reserve my few comments on this point until then. In the meantime, sir, I look forward to hearing what other members have to say. Thank you, sir.
Is the proposition seconded? Proposition is seconded. It is now open for debate. Chief Minister.
Sir, thank you. I believe it is my turn to speak first. So I am, of course, disappointed to be facing this vote of no confidence today, if not entirely unsurprised. Indeed, a number of members will be aware that Deputy Tom Binney has been threatening to lodge a vote such as this almost from the outset of government. In early last year, for example, he declared in a Council of Ministers meeting that he was talking to states members and trying to secure the numbers required to win a vote of no confidence. I think all ministers were taken aback by that particular declaration. To achieve success, we have worked as a team. I'm aware of the historic precedents for this vote today. Every Chief Minister in Jersey's history has faced a vote of no confidence at some point during their tenure. But I'm not sure if any Chief Minister has faced a vote in quite the same circumstances. The public want to hear us debating policy direction issues today, policies that will deal with the challenges that they experience in their lives. They do not want to spend our time critiquing style and personality. In the report accompanying the proposition, Deputy Tom Binney makes some points on which I am pleased to say that we can all agree. We are at the beginning of a new year. We have a government plan for 2024 recently approved by 33 votes to 13. Members are now accustomed to the requirements of their office and they're getting to grips with the challenges that we face in our various roles. Funding for the next phase of the new hospital project is in place, a project that I am fully behind and that it has all ministers' support. And we have 30 months remaining before the next election to drive forward our plans and to deliver the priorities of islanders as best we can. That should be a positive and a good starting point at which to begin the year. I've said previously that among ministers and between Deputy Binet and myself, there is more on which we agree than we disagree. But instead of working together to achieve our shared aims, we have unfortunately been dragged into this debate today, looking inwards with a great deal of he said, she said, and personality politics. This takes time, distracts, and causes the public to ask why we're not just getting on with the job that we were elected for. So being Chief Minister is far from easy, and I'm not sure anybody fully knows what to expect until they've done the job for themselves. For the avoidance of doubt, sir, I include myself very much in that category. The job is, of course, about leadership, setting the direction of government, setting the tone of engagement with key partners and with the public, driving forward important changes for islanders. It's about unlocking any blockages in the system and ensuring that government is meeting the commitments and objectives on behalf of the public. Sometimes that can involve some difficult conversations and not always saying what people will want to hear, either internally or externally. Delivering those messages is a key part of the job, but that matters. What matters is making your point and getting your message across in an appropriate and a respectful manner. I'm passionate about the job, sir. I'm ambitious for our island, and I'm keen to get on and to deliver. I recognise, however, that sometimes my ambition for change has resulted in uncomfortable situations being created for my colleagues. One of our values is always improving. We are all a work in progress, always learning, and I know that I don't get everything right. Who does? Primarily, sir, being Chief Minister, I should say, though, sir, I do counter some of the allegations that have been made this morning by the Deputy in his opening speech, and I will move on to that later, I hope. But primarily, being Chief Minister is about compromise, consensus, cooperation, and coalition. We've heard a lot about our system of government in recent days and weeks, and indeed years. So we ultimately have the system we have, and we have it for various reasons which are not the immediate subject of this vote. There is no sunlit upland where a different system will immediately deliver the results we all desire. There is no party big enough to command a majority of seats in the government, let alone in the Assembly. Political parties can't even get 21 people to stand for election, let alone appointed to government. Government is complicated. That applies in every country in the world, and in my view, good people will make any system work. Our system, based for many years on consensus and compromise, is what we have. It has served us well. It is my type of politics, and I hope that it is here to stay. We therefore need to value, improve, and work within our consensus-based system. That is why I'm committed. That's what I'm committed to doing more of in future if members support me today. The Chief Minister has to build a trusted team in order to deliver. I have a strong team of committed, intelligent and experienced ministers and assistant ministers who are committed to delivering better outcomes for islanders, because outcomes are what we should be focused on. We have ministers drawn from a wide range of different walks of life with experience in business, public service, the law, financial services, community and voluntary sector, broadcasting and communications, both within Jersey and other places. Yes, we debate. Yes, we sometimes disagree and challenge. Yes, we're passionate in our views. But so far, we have always found a way through. My approach has always been one of welcoming different views, because it is my experience that listening to different points of view leads to better decision-making, a point which I think is of particular importance when viewed in the context of the responsibility which this Assembly and those in government have to serve the interests and needs of islanders, which are themselves wide-ranging and different. I hope that the public will be reassured that their government isn't just sitting in the Council of Ministers room rubber stamping each proposal or document that is placed in front of them. Anyone who comes to a Council of Ministers meeting, a ministerial group or the State's Employment Board knows that they need to be on top of the issues which are to be discussed. Today, sir, a vote against me is a vote against the continued work of the whole Council, because all members of the government will fall if this proposition is carried. What hasn't been easy, I admit, sir, is the way in which some disagreements have taken place. And I'm afraid that where there have been heated arguments, raised voices, or lost tempers over the past 18 months, the proposer of this vote of no confidence has unfortunately been a constant. I add that the difficulties which Deputy Binet has had with their former, well, both deputies, Binet, sorry, have had with their former employee, Deputy Wilson, are well known. I made efforts to resolve these through, firstly, informal mediation and then with a professional mediator. Sadly, that process did not come to a conclusion in either case. So we have all tried very hard to work with Deputy Binet. I said after he resigned that he is a driven and committed Jerseyman, and I say that again today. He has had a successful business career, but as everyone in the Assembly knows, business and politics are two very different things. He, for the most part, ran his department well, where he was in charge, and as far as I'm aware, he was liked by his staff. But the experience of his ministerial colleagues was not that of a team player. Reflecting back, which is something I'm always doing and have done so particularly over the last fortnight, I do think I could have been quicker and more decisive in perhaps bringing this particular chapter to a close by myself asking for Deputy Binet to resign. But, sir, I tried to compromise and to work things through right until he volunteered his resignation and brought this vote of no confidence against me. Given the positive way we ended last year with a strong mandate for our government plan, I had hoped that we would have the chance to start the new year with full sails and a fresh wind at our backs. This is not the start of the year that I would have wished for, but I am confident, and I know I'm supported by my ministerial colleagues in this view, that if we are left to get on with delivering on the mandate that the Assembly gave us in December, we will, if this vote is rejected today, move forward and be more united than we've ever been. Sir, Deputy Binet's reports make some criticisms of me. I think many of them are on subjective questions of opinion, style or personality, but some specific points are raised. Deputy Binet has a different understanding to me in respect of my relationship with the former Chief Executive. So it was a professional relationship, and despite what Deputy Binet wants to tell you, and indeed has today, to the best of my knowledge, we did never fall out. I made some mistakes at the time as to when I was informed of the former Chief Executive's resignation, which I rectified publicly at the earliest opportunity. This matter was investigated by the Commissioner for Standards, and whilst I was found to have made some mistakes, I was not found to have breached the Code of Conduct. It's worth reminding members that the Commissioner for Standards did also meet with the former Chief Executive at that time as well. Partly, that was because of the immediate public action that I took to rectify the errors that I had made, demonstrating my commitment to openness and transparency that I made to the public and to members back in 2022. Those who know me well and who work with me will, I hope, acknowledge that I'm willing to admit to my mistakes, take responsibility, and to apologise. I add that I consider that I have a very good working relationship with our interim Chief Executive, who, as you know, is responsible for delivery on the operational side of government. One earlier aspect of his leadership has been a departure from the Charlie Parker-style centralised control and insistence that chief officers and their teams once again start to take greater responsibility for their various portfolios. There is more that we need to do, but steps in the right direction have been made. I also think it is appropriate, before moving off the topic, to focus on one issue raised by Deputy Binet, because I do not want to be accused of ducking it. In his report, he asks us all to look behind what was said in the former Chief Executive's resignation letter, the suggestion being that the letter contains a false narrative, that he knows better. The author is, of course, not here, and even if she were, she would not have the right to speak. I will confine myself to observing that she was a professional and an experienced executive, and I did not form the view that she would say something that she did not mean, which is essentially the nature of the in absentia charge which Deputy Binet lays at her door. What she did suggest in her resignation letter was that the job should be reassessed. We have spent time considering that, and when asked by the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel at a public hearing recently whether he would agree that the role is one for two people, the interim said he did not. Deputy Binet criticises me for my support of the Health Minister. I cannot help, sir, but see an irony here. On the one hand, I'm accused of a lack of leadership, on the other, for standing by one of my team, who used to be part of Deputy Binet's team in his charitable work. I have strong views, as many people do, on the state of our health service, as we inherited it. Putting it bluntly, and without any intention on my part to disrespect the committed and hard-working people who work tirelessly to treat our sick and injured, but we are turning it around. We have invested in the change team, and we are determined to leave a health service with better financial house back in order, more frontline clinical staff, shorter waiting lists, and those are being achieved, and new modern facilities in development. This requires teamwork, and I'll work constructively with anyone to improve the health service in our island. But I won't side with what I consider to be repeated and personalised attacks on the Health Minister, including in circumstances where she and her team are making progress. Reference is also made to the recent report of the Commissioner for Standards in respect of the Health Minister. The Minister has made mistakes, but she has complied with the requirements of the Commissioner and apologised to Deputy Ward, Deputy Southern and to the Assembly. Interestingly, sir, Deputy Binet seeks to go behind the report of the Commissioner and draws different conclusions to her, despite her experience at performing the role, effectively blaming me for the unfortunate and regrettable scenarios that have formed part of the matter. Then, sir, the hospital project. I'm accused of secrecy and of trying to reverse the plans for an acute unit at Overdale with ambulatory at Kensington Place. The reality, understood by all other ministers involved in these discussions, is that we have a duty to protect the commercial confidentiality of the programme and to protect the interests of taxpayers. As I've said publicly, no other country in the world would publish its budget for a big capital project such as this in advance of going out to tender. I do not wish to labour the point particularly, but I feel I must. If an islander wants to build an extension to their home, would they really tell 3 builders from whom they're going to seek tenders how much money they have to spend? I will leave you all to draw your own conclusions. In respect of the project itself, I have always sought to ensure that a wide range of voices and views are heard, and ministers have always challenged the proposals to ensure we're taking the...
I'm sorry, Chief Minister, to interrupt you. There's a little bit of background noise which is becoming audible, and the Chief Minister must have the opportunity to answer. Please continue, Chief Minister.
Thank you, sir. I've always challenged the proposals to ensure that we're taking the best approach for the island. I think that is normal during the course of a major project. Fundamentally, we're now moving ahead with the plans, which I know are supported by Deputy Binet, and of which he has been a significant architect. Concept designs will be available to see towards the end of this month. We agree on the direction of the project, which makes me question again the reality behind this proposition today. Deputy Binet also very briefly references Les Sablons. Given that he himself approved the application on appeal, I think this is a topic on which we also agree. Indeed, on policy, I feel that there is much more we agree on than we disagree. I have found it very frustrating that our regular agreement on policy was often trumped by other factors not related to policy or delivery. On Les Sablons, sir, I said last week to the Chamber of Commerce that I was disappointed and annoyed at the previous decision, and I think I let that show. But equally, I recognise the discomfort that created for some of my colleagues, and I expressed regret for that. As I have said, sir, a vote of no confidence in me today would bring the government down. As ministers, we never forget that we hold our positions at the will of the Assembly. It is a privilege to serve and an honour to receive the trust of colleagues to do so. We are always aware that we are a minority government and that the work of government must be intrinsically linked with ongoing partnership, cooperation and communication with members who aren't serving in the executive. I hope members will recognise that I and we always seek to work with backbench members where we can on propositions, projects or policy ideas, always seeking to find common ground. I enjoy, for example, working with Deputy Balash and Deputy Barbara Ward on the State's Employment Board and having Deputy Johnson as chair of the Legislation Advisory Panel. Deputy Porre is a member, a valued member of the Recovery group. And I know that I and we need to do more to engage with backbench members and to make them feel part of the work that is taking place. I do want to emphasise the importance of roles on panels and committees. I've been in the Assembly for just over 12 years and I've spent more time in scrutiny than I have in government. That was time well spent doing important work, reviewing and improving policy, holding the government to account as a critical friend. I hope members recognise the crucial role of scrutiny and the value that it plays in our system. Constructive scrutiny always has and always will play a key part in the government's decision-making process. But my wider engagement outside of formal panel meetings and processes can be enhanced, and I have plans to do exactly that in the weeks and months ahead. Ministers have just started work to deliver on our updated ministerial plans. 18 months in, now is when we can put our foot on the accelerator. Now is not the time to slam on the brakes, get out of the car and start looking for a new means of transport. In an island such as Jersey, with an externally facing economy, stability and confidence are important. Stability and confidence are central to our success and key to investment growth and revenue, which pays for the services from which we all benefit and we all need. I ask members not to put that stability at risk. We began this term of office with a mini budget focused on supporting islanders with the cost of living, and as members will recall, that focus has continued with our 2 government plans. The assistance we have given has been extensive, including through the tax system, social security, duty freezes and rises in the minimum wage. No Jersey government has raised the minimum wage by 26% in its first 18 months in office. We started the rollout of hot school meals across island primary schools and will continue that project for the remainder of our time in government. We've committed the money to start improvement in our drainage network, which will enable us to get building more homes for islanders. We're supporting first-time buyers by raising the stamp duty bar for them and deploying the £10 million set aside for share equity schemes. And the Housing Minister will bring forward proposals this year to support the rental market. There are exciting opportunities at South Hill, on the waterfront, and especially at St Saviour's Hospital to deliver. I add that it is a government priority to do more and faster. The Council of Ministers plans to hold an away day in the coming weeks to consider how and what further efficiencies may be delivered, including in the arena of planning, so that more homes may be delivered more quickly, because we're listening. On recruitment and retention, we've adapted the rules to allow greater access for housing for care workers, for example. We've recruited additional staff in education, that's 47 teaching assistants, 29 special educational needs coordinators. There were no vacancies in our primary schools at the start of the academic year and again at the start of this calendar year. Since September, we've been working with teachers on their terms and conditions. This work has been on hold under the last government. We heard that it was a concern and we are making good progress. That is what will make a difference for teachers who are struggling with their workload. And we're making life easier for key workers in Jersey, providing an improved welcome and greater support so they can focus on their jobs and not worrying about administrative matters, which we should be handling for them. When we entered office, nurses were spending part of their shift making phone calls to hotels to book rooms for their colleagues. I acknowledge that more work needs to be done in this respect, and I'm working with the interim CEO to deliver efficiencies as a matter of priority. A point of particular frustration to me has been hearing stories of islanders who are willing to work being referred to UK recruitment agencies and then being told that they will have to wait to start work when their jobs are available. We're starting to make improvements to the public infrastructure realm. I mentioned our sewage network, the Opera House, the town markets and Montalabé School are all moving ahead. There's more to come with the Coronation Greenway, Fort Regent, the Harbour Master Plan and sites that I've already mentioned at St Saviour's, South Hill and the waterfront. Yes, we will find a plan that will be acceptable. In town, as well as building new replacement schools, this government will deliver as part of that work more green space and more car parking. We've also, sir, had to deal with unforeseen events, an unprecedented number of them. The Lecumbe 2 sinking, the Haute du Mont explosion, the Granvaux flooding, a gas outage and Storm Ciarán, leaving on one side the unfortunate consequences for all of the war in Ukraine. In terms of the 4 major incidents, we are still managing their impact and their consequences today. I hope I've represented the community effectively in responding to those events, supporting our excellent and committed frontline teams with whatever they needed from ministers to do their jobs, and being there to listen to the islanders who were affected, so I could hear their stories firsthand and respond to their needs. In many cases, I was also required to speak nationally and internationally, conveying the island's feelings to the wider world at a time of shock and mourning. It's a job I took seriously, and I hope I didn't let anyone down. So now is the time to deliver, including on the mandate this Assembly resoundingly gave my government last month. To deliver on the economy and productivity, driving forward the Future Economy programme and enabling growth, to deliver the homes we need now and for the future, to improve the health service and build the new hospital, to support our young people and families, and to improve St Helier and the public realm. We have an agenda for change, we have a plan, and I ask members to allow that work to move forward and not to take a step back. So last week, I couldn't help but notice that Deputy Binet described my current job as horrible and that he dreaded the idea of being Chief Minister, that he hates the front line. So whilst my job is difficult and demanding, it certainly isn't horrible. It's a privilege to serve our island and to lead our community. I don't approach every day with dread, but with huge optimism and hope for what I can try to achieve and for the public and in meeting their aspirations. And I admire and respect our front line. I want to spend more time with our staff, sir, not less. I know I've made mistakes. I know I'm not the perfect Chief Minister and that I never will be. But I care about the job and I care about Jersey. It is my view that we have achieved a lot in 18 months and the foundations are now in place to deliver our priorities on behalf of islanders by the end of our 4-year term. Moving forward, working together, I hope you will allow this council the time and the opportunity to complete what we have started. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief Minister. Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Gardner.
Thank you, sir. It feels people waiting. It's my second vote of no confidence as a state member that I'm participating in. and it's very different vote of no confidence from the last one against then Chief Minister John Lafondre. Partially because I'm in the government, and partially because last time, if people remember, it was mostly about the government way of dealing with COVID and also CEO party payments and second jobs. Interesting that CEO now also involved, but my experience and recollection with working with a CEO that left this term was completely different to Deputy Bine, because we had really good relationship and we did have very good conversation before she left. So my understanding was different. But going back, last vote of confidence in my recollection was about actions and methods of managing a crisis. And this one seemingly about style of management, as numerous major incidents that we faced as an island were managed well. So the last time we came with statistics and data. This time it will be mostly what we've heard now, opinion of stylistic differences. I reflected on the stylistic difference word. It's really great expression. It took me to, it's what basically rock bands use when they split up to go to the solo albums. This is the stylistic difference. But to the serious note, over the next few hours or potentially next 2 days, the State Assembly will be focusing over personalities and not the policies, it feels like. Interpersonal communication between people in this assembly instead of actually delivery on what's important for the people of Jersey outside of this assembly. We are going to spend if we are already going to spend all this time talking about personalities and style of management, I want to remind members that to achieve anything, but anything of any substance, it's important to work as a team of ministers and a team with the assistant ministers. I wasn't able to deliver stuff without my assistant ministers as well, and I'm sure they will speak. I'm grateful in one perspective that this vote of no confidence told me, stop, look back on 18 months, because it was lots of accusation, this government doesn't deliver, nothing deliver. And what I realized that I wasn't working well enough to actually communicate what we have delivered as a team, and Chief Minister mentioned some of them. And if I'll tell what I delivered as a minister as the Minister for Children Education and part of this team, probably 15 minutes will not be enough. But I will try to bring to the members and also to the public to hear, because it's really important to understand what we were able to achieve as a team and me as the minister, and I picked up 10 points. Promise no more, as you know, I'm going with the numbers. First, start and complete building of much needed extension of the Montelabe School. It has been opened in December, and it was one of my first decisions that I signed off as the new minister. And it took 14 months to build, but now we have extra capacity and we can bring children that long due to come to Montelabe, but we didn't have a space, and we have the new school delivered. Second, open 2 new children homes and reduce numbers of children placed off the island that we were challenged. And the Jersey First Therapeutic Home is in delivery motion, and members were updated. Third, first time since the student grants were introduced, we increased, first time that it was proper increase, because before it wasn't increased, by 10.1% maintenance grant for 2022-2023 academic year in response to increased cost of living. And also what we've done together with the support of the Council of Ministers, because I cannot do it on my own. Now the upraise of the student maintenance grant moved to the annually managed expenditure. We don't need to debate it. It will happen. It will happen automatically. And the students and the parents would receive upgrade in line with inflation as we do with income support. It wasn't before. It has been delivered. On top, I listened to the public, and public said it's really expensive in London. And we introduced London component to the students, 10%, because we know that to study in London is more expensive. It has been done with the support. 4. I inherited department with 80% of outdated IT equipment. By the end of the last 2023, we reduced it to 40%, from 80 to 40. You can understand what was the investment. And I have funds to reduce to 20% by the end of this year and bring our IT infrastructure in school within the next 2 years to what it should be in 21st century and deliver digital education. Fifth, and Chief Minister mentioned a bit, and we have changed recruitment process, one of the things that we've done back in September 2022. And currently I have 1.4 vacancies at teachers. So I have 8 vacancies out of 917 teachers. I know that we have a dispute and it caused interruption and it's not easy, but I'm currently finalizing terms and conditions to the teaching assistants that should be published imminently, which will increase, obviously, their work. We have produced with the teachers and we are progressing with the high teachers. If members think that will not require millions to address these terms and conditions, think about it, because to address the terms and conditions which will come with the review will require extra funds. I received children's services with 55% vacancies in the social worker. I'm still not there, but from 55, I have reduced it to 37%. Yes, it's not 100%, it's not there, but it is within 18 months. Mental health, it's number 7. Well-being, mental health. We all, I'm not sure if you're aware, but within the last 3 years, we have an increase of 800%. This is the latest data that I received in referrals. And CAM staff gone from 21 person in 2021. Now we have 70 people, staff, 70 people, it's budget and it's delivery. Yes, we still have, we need to improve waiting time and we know that we are not there, but with 800% increase, we are being inspected recently and from first feedback, we are going there. Also, we opened last year in 2023, this government, me, my team, with support of the Chief Minister, we have new neurodevelopment dedicated service, we have new early intervention service, we have new FASD service, and also a doctor and 2 nurses on duty to quickly support our front door. And in Q1, my plan to open 8 to 8, 7 days a week, and we do have funds, and we did recruit people. So if we're talking about delivery, this is what it is. 8, this government, and with support of the Chief Minister, we have just around 20 million gross, and in that next 2 years, to invest in education and children's services reform, which most of it, around 90%, going into the staffing. We did recruit in total 113 people to work in education as a front staff. We do need it to deliver the services. School meals, we started with 5 schools. By the end of this month, we have 10 schools, and by the end of the year, all primary schools will have hot meals available. And I remember I was supporting Deputy Ward in his proposition as a backbench, and we talked about 200 or 300 or 400,000 pounds. How much we really needed? We need 1.6 million that this government allocated and invested because we don't have infrastructure. We don't realize how much we need to change physically at schools to deliver. You need to build kitchens that are not available. We need to recruit staff is not available. And it has been investment, my uniform policy, when I cap in the numbers of branded items of school to help parents with managed cost of living. The conversation started back in September 22. It took time. And I have full commitment from the Chief Minister for new schools in St. Helier, Youth and Community Centre, and all feasibilities are in progress. It's 10 out of many. I know that I'm limited on time. The Chief Minister's style and support have been instrumental in allowing me to do these things. And she helped me through the challenges of getting things done in Jersey. It doesn't mean that we didn't have challenging conversations. We have several challenging conversations and difficult conversations. And we came back and we had another difficult conversations. But we found a way forward. So for me, it's not stylistic, it's not a style problem. The essential, we really need carefully to consider the implication of such vote and recognize the importance of the stability and continuity of our government. Just thinking about SIBES departments, children, young people, education and skills. We do understand that the new children and young people will come into force. The corporate parenting board, the Deputy Mazek, then Senator Mazek started at the previous government. Unfortunately, since Deputy Mazek left, it didn't really continue. And when I received the office, was back on square one. I needed to build from the beginning. Think about the department had 4 ministers in 5 years. It's not a surprise that people saying, oh, you didn't deliver. And children say, we told you everything, but you didn't hear. For sure, because you had 4 ministers change in 5 years. It took me a year to build trust because the corporate parenting board, 4 ministers, representatives from the charities, and children voices we need to include, and officers. When I started corporate parenting board, and I really tried to continue what Deputy Mazek started, unfortunately it wasn't continued by other ministers, I'd gone back. And it took me a year to build this relationship and overcome the barrier of the trust, because I said, we told you everything, but you haven't done any. We're finally on the way. I was preparing yesterday to the corporate parenting board, and I realized I do have a plan to confirm with corporate parenting board what we agreed. We've done workshop, we've done development, but am I ready to confirm this plan now? It's really important that the government starting and finishing project. It's non-quantity. Do this public really want us to continue to discuss ourselves and to get on with the job, to deliver? Do the public want us to continue as a solid team over the next 2 years, a team that already know the brief, a team that is already in the middle of the delivery plan, a team that already knows what they need to do and what they expected to do, because it's very clear what they expected to do. The new team, we are not sure what they would like to do or to deliver. Do the people of Jersey want to reset of the Council of Ministers? Deputy Andrews and my surgery last Friday, people raised concerns, right concerns, and saying how much, there is what you are debating in the States, what's matter to the public, how you're getting on with the business, how you're communicating. And I hear these concerns, and concerns are valid. But I didn't feel that the whole reshuffle and start from beginning, it's something that public is ready for this time. But we do need to make changes and make sure we continue with the delivery. I personally delivered positive changes with the support of the Chief Minister and our team as a Council of Ministers, in spite of major incidents, in spite of the worsening economic situation, in spite of the huge uncertainties in the United Kingdom and globally. Big majority of this assembly, as the Chief Minister said, last sitting supported the government plan, including vision and delivery targets. Let's work, let's get on with it, and let it happen. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak? Deputy Lewis.
Thank you, sir. And like Deputy Gardiner, this is also not my first vote of no confidence. Some will say it's quite useful to introduce humour into debates of all types. And I just wonder, sir, whether I might suggest that our sister island, Guernsey, might shoulder some of the blame. We don't want to get left behind. And they've had a vote of no confidence. It's incumbent upon us to keep up. Others might also say they have a Chief Minister called Lyndon, but I'll leave it there. So I'll leave it there because this is serious stuff. This is as serious as it gets politically, particularly for those politicians concerned. There's two ways to arrive at a vote of no confidence, as members will know. It's usually a one-off event, a single decision that goes in a particular direction that members feel very strongly about. And it's unusual that we have a vote of no confidence that just signals a general direction of travel. And until now, I've always thought that it was that single event which should be the reason to bring a vote of no confidence. But actually, when you look back and when you read Deputy Binay's report and when you listen to what he said in his opening speech, maybe there is an alternative. I have to say, sir, that like many others, I'm sure we've sat around last week thinking about today, and my overwhelming emotions were sadness and disappointment. It's sad because a debate like this has to happen, and it's also sad that a government, potentially in the view of some members, are not performing as well as they should. I was also sad, so I'm not going to go again reiterate the points that Deputy Binay made in his speech of the number of different things that have led to this point, but I was particularly sad when it was felt acceptable to lose the Constable of St John from the Council of Ministers. He's a man I have great faith in. His ability speaks for itself, and I was sad to see him go. The disappointment, do I add to Deputy Binay's list? But one thing I feel I must say, sir, because I was extremely disappointed at the time, was that twice in this term of government, the Chief Minister's chosen not to be here on States Assembly Day. On both occasions, I felt that that was a misjudgment, and I was extremely disappointed. So we all know that the Chief Minister's job's not easy, and I certainly accept that, but there are ways to do things, and there are ways not to do things. So there's sadness, there's disappointment, and also regret. And I regret that this debate last week seemed, in my mind anyway, to become personal. I certainly, if I'd written Deputy Binay's report, I might have chosen to use some different words. But I was particularly regretting the response from government in the media to Deputy Binay, and I'd like to put that on record. This sort of debate should be political and factual and not personal, and some of the accusations made by government in the press were ones that I do not recognise. So I think we all know we should be working together for the benefit of our island, and working together is something that, as far as I'm concerned, Deputy Binay gets. He was, in my view, the best possible person that could have led Infrastructure Department in the last couple of years, and his efforts in a short period of time have achieved much, despite some real hurdles for him to overcome. He gets the people working together. He gets talking to all sides, and he, in my view, sir, achieves results. I'd conclude with this, and that's that I've had an inordinate number of contacts from parishioners, constituents and islanders by phone, email, by message and face-to-face just walking through the street in the last 10 days. And it's clear to me, sir, that we need to do something. We need to do more. We need to stop talking and start walking and start taking action to show that we can make change and address and improve the major and serious challenges that our island faces. We've got to stop talking about doing things better and start doing things better. We have to do better. At the very least, we have to try to do better. And I believe we can do better. I very much hope in his summing up speech that Deputy Binay will show us how we can do better. He certainly convinced me, sir, that there is an alternative way forward. He gets my vote, and I hope others will consider voting in favour of this proposition. Thank you, sir.
We are almost at that time. Is the adjournment proposed?
Yes, please, sir.
Very well. Could I just ask the Chair of PPC if she'd like to give consideration to where we might be going and make any proposition, if there is any, to be made after the luncheon adjournment?
Yeah.
Very well. The Assembly stands adjourned. We reconvene at 2:15.